This is Infection, the survival podcast recorded live on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019, episode 220. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your source for the latest information on survival video games. We bring you the latest news, reviews, updates, and more each and every week. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig, and of course, visit our website. It is infectionpodcast.com. He is fully recovered. He sounds great. And he looks even better. My co-host, my friend, Brian with an I, Aldridge. Brian, I thought you were wearing a T-shirt originally, and I had to look in. Nope, it's a collared shirt. I'm sorry. I didn't want to make any rash judgments.
I don't think I've ever worn a T-shirt on the show.
The first episode, you did wear that Nintendo shirt.
I wore a button-up shirt, but that was still collared and a button.
Yeah, I know, but it was kind of officially. But it was kind of T-shirt.
I do have shirts that aren't button-up. But
your Rend shirt. Is that the only T-shirt you own?
No, I have T-shirts, but I have T-shirts with no words on them.
Interesting.
I have lots of T-shirts. It's just I sleep in them. I don't wear them for
TMI, Brian.
Yeah. All right. If you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, of course, my blog biteoftech.com, and make sure you go to our website where we have all of our show notes. So for the past now 220 episodes plus a few extra. We have show notes for each and every one of those, and you'll be able to go and look at links. We have, if there's a video that maybe you're listening to the show on your drive or at work, and you want to be able to watch the video that maybe we discussed on the live show, you can go to our website, click on the episode that you're thinking of, and all the notes for that whole episode are right there. We have our YouTube channel on there, our Discord, which is where if you want to suggest news throughout the week, that's an excellent place to do that. You can go and join our server, go to the news channel, put links in there. I always reference those before the show when I'm making my show notes. And so it's a great way to go in and be a part of the show, even if you can't be with us live. So
excellent.
That's about it. I didn't mention this time our audio. So if you do want to go on there, we do have for people that want to listen to the podcast form, we do have links to that. And as I said, our YouTube channel, our Twitch channel, all of that's on the website, really easy to get to.
Yes, we've made it as easy as possible for everybody to get on and check out all of those platforms. Brian, I do have an announcement. It's not really an announcement, yes, but I do want to. So for a couple of weeks now, we've been talking about this. If you're a live listener, you may have heard it in our pre or post show. We've talked about this. There's so many different games to talk about. And then there's just some general gaming topics. For example, we talked about Google Stadia a couple weeks ago. A couple of other companies have got some new streaming services coming out that we're not going to mention by name or we'll get copyright hit on YouTube. We've got a lot of things going on in gaming right now. And we've been struggling to, when we sit here and look at our show notes, we've been struggling to figure out what is important on this list to cover. So over the past week, Brian and I set up a feedback form, and we want to hear from you. So if you go to infectionpodcast.com/feedback, it will take you to a Google form. And when you get to that, it's very simple. We ask for your email address just so you can't fill out a whole bunch of them. And when you go there, very simple. It's going to ask you, again, what your email is, and then it's going to ask which of there's a list of probably 15 or 20 games on here, and it's going to ask you what are the top 4 games you would like to hear about on the show every week. Not that we're just going to cover 4 games, but 4 games that you specifically would like to hear about. If there's
what's the priority?
Exactly, priority list. And then also, how do you listen to the podcast, be it Twitch, YouTube, or via RSS via podcast. And then any other feedback you may have is at the bottom of the form there. Real quick, real simple. It should take you literally a minute to fill out. And if you would do that for us, it would be greatly appreciated. It's infectionpodcast.com/feedback, or just go to our Twitter. I'll pin it on our Twitter, but I tweeted it out today. So the April 2nd, you can go look for that. And we'll do that for like 2 weeks. And then we've already had a whole bunch of people fill it out, which is great. So fill that out for us, and it will help us better prioritize what the hell we need to talk about and what we need to cram into this 2 hours every week, because it's tough. We've
been running out of time and not being able to cover everything. So
and then the end of the show just becomes this game did this, and it's just all condensed and crammed into one little area. So please, if you would fill that out for us, we'd greatly appreciate it. And I think the end result will be probably a better program. So infectionpodcast.com/feedback. One word. You can go ahead and check that out. Okay.
Very good.
Game of the week, Brian. This has been one that we've been talking about for a while that we wanted to do, and we're going to do Realm Royale for our game of the week. About a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, they did a big update in which they changed their whole class system with different each player now, I don't know what they call them. Each class now has got multiple special abilities that they can choose from, and you get to pick which abilities you do or don't want. So they've added a lot of character customization essentially to that game, and we're going to try that out. It's Realm Royale. It's a battle royale game, and it is free. So you have no excuse, unless maybe you have an internet cap or you live in Australia like Joe and the internet doesn't work, to be there and hang out with us Friday night, which we do every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern in our Discord. All the links, all the information is on our website. It's infectionpodcast.com.
Yep. And if anybody ever wants to suggest a game of the week, we're open to that. For instance, we've been discussing possibly doing a Rust game of the week.
We have.
So maybe, if people are up for it, not this week, but next week, because I'd like to kind of hype it and get a decent number of people there to where we can go on a server and actually have a chance.
Yeah.
Let's plan it. Yeah, if people are interested, and you have a game, like, why don't you ever play this game for game of the week? Just suggest it, and then we'll put it into the rotation.
Absolutely. And if you like to host a game of the week, you can do that as well. If you're an expert in a game that we talk about or whatever on the show, and you want to host that for our game of the week, all that means is you are kind of the driving force behind getting everybody in one group or one lobby or whatever it may be. You can do that as well.
Yep.
Just PM us on Discord or send us an email. contact@infectionpodcast.com.
Good.
All right. Brian, let's talk about a game that we haven't talked about in a very long time, but somehow it came up as a topic of conversation over the past week. I know what happened. I made a phone call to you, which is always the cardinal mistake. Brian and I do not talk almost at all off the air, because every time we talk, it turns into, we must have, the NSA got like a 45-minute podcast Friday night when we were on the phone talking, and a game came up. I don't know which one of us brought it up. Rend, which you were super hyped about.
I think I had said, what happened to Rend?
Probably.
Because I had asked, I was like, we never heard back from them. And so I think at that time you were in front of your computer and you're like, well, let me look and see, and you pulled it up and And so you saw that there was a sale.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this is on sale. Great. It's on sale for $10.
$9.89. And it's still on sale. If anybody wants to go check it out on Steam. But we said, hey, let's grab this. So I purchased it. Nick purchased it.
A little bit of backstory though. You saw this game at PAX. They were in the Twitch booth at PAX West.
They were in a side room. So this is the one where we went. So
that's where the interview was.
Initially
they were.
So we ran into them. Yeah, we saw the booth.
Yeah,
and we said, hey, could we get an interview? And so they were very gracious. They scheduled an interview that was at a separate time in a separate location where it's quiet, and they could take us through and actually open up the Unreal editor and show us content from the game that they were working on. And so we did that. We scheduled that interview, and they seemed very hyped about it. We thought it was going to be a really cool idea, and we messaged them to be able to possibly get review keys for it, and just never heard anything back.
Yeah, originally they were going to come on the podcast and talk about it. And in the show notes there will be the PAX West interview if you'd like to go ahead and watch it and need a little bit of a refresher. So. Fast forward, Friday night rolls around. Brian and I say, okay, we're going to put our money where our mouth is. Let's download. Well, actually, that's not true. We saw that they did an update. And this update had happened, I think, the day we were talking. Yes, it was. The update, this all happened on Friday. Crazy coincidence that this happened to come up. So, but real quick, Rend is it's a survival game. There's no zombies. And the goal
it's kind of objective based.
it's kind of like planet side, but survival based.
It's time limited as far as like, I don't know if it's a month. It's a certain period of time for the server, kind of like the Extinction servers were. And so you have 3 factions. I don't know if we'll have to look at the notes to see if they changed it, but there was 3 factions that you could be a part of. Maybe it was 4 now. So I think when we were looking now, 3 factions, I think you would join one of the factions, and then you as a group. And now there are 3 different game modes. That's what I'm thinking. There's 3 different game modes. One of them is faction-based time. They did add a PvP, pretty much a straight PvP mode, and then they have a PvE mode that you can go run around and kind of progress and build. But the original intent that they were doing was to have this 3 factions that would all cooperate together as far as each faction by themselves, and then they would try to progress and beat the other factions to, I guess, Valhalla.
Yeah,
if I remember.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all of a memory that I'm remembering this. And so you would have to play, and then if you could beat them, that you would carry some sort of a buff over from that season, or some sort of a perk that would then carry over into the next season that they started. So they have a building system, progression system, and so we decided, hey, let's go ahead and jump in and play this. Now, do you want to talk about our experience, or do you want to talk about some of the updates that they did?
Let's talk about our experience first. So, let's talk about the updates, because the updates kind of work into the experience. So they are, after what I believe is 8 short months, they are releasing the game. They are coming out of, is it beta or
so they
alpha?
Originally were in alpha, and then they went to early access, and now they're out of early access. So they actually, I put links to the different stages. So
Yes.
They had a page for the alpha, which showed some of the things that they wanted for that. First of all, control points. So that is, as far as a gameplay mode, having control points. The Reckoning, which is kind of a world event that drops faction-based shields and things like that. They added a taming system to it, which was a big part of the game. They worked on the user interface, did a full character redesign from what we originally saw. They did a talent and skills rebalance. They did late game biomes, so pretty much, because it is a progression based system. So as you went through, you're able to get to these harder biomes with higher level enemies and animals and things like that. And then late game crafting as well. So I do like that, to where they have tiered as far as not everything is available to you day one. It gets kind of 2 different styles. There are games that are good for that, but then there's other games like Ark where you have that progression system, where that's a big part of the game. And then they added a social system. So that's mostly based on permissions and establishing kind of rule sets based on factions. And so that was the alpha that they did. And then they went into early access. And this one was focusing on game modes. So they added those various game modes. I talked about the 3 different game modes. They improved some of the combat on there. They redid the crafting, redid storage on it. They added what they call legendary artifacts. So that's kind of built into that Norse mythology that I was talking about, to make unique weapons and armor that you can use pretty much late game. They worked on that siege combat, so dynamic siege combat, and then they said refined social mechanics. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then they said they optimized the map layout, so kind of making the world so that it better suited that PvP rival combat that they're looking with the factions. So that was the 2 stages, and that's where they came out with this then final patch, the patch 9.
Yeah, and so there's a pretty lengthy, what is called Rend development letter launch here, which I'd recommend, if you're interested, you can go ahead and read. The part that we found interesting was the future of Rend, which I think would form a lot of questions here. what is it? Frost, what studio? Not Frostbite, Frost something studios.
Frost Keep?
Something like that. They say as an independent studio.
Yeah, Frost Keep.
As an independent studio with 18 developers, we are thrilled that during its first week of early access, Rend held the top 5 rank on Twitch with more than 800 channels streaming their faction wars through the Rend partner program. Small feat for their team, yada, yada, yada. They talk about crucial feedback from the community, but it says ultimately being an independent developer with finite resources, we must weigh the resource costs of continuing development against its commercial potential. Although we will be continuing to support the final version of Rend down the road, we do not currently have plans for adding new or future content to the game. However, if a steady influx of players are buying and playing Rend, we will reevaluate opportunities for adding new content or future updates. They consolidated their server list. I think there's like 8 or 9 servers now. And we went ahead and looked at their here we go. We're going early current players coming to you here. We went ahead and looked at their player numbers, and they were abysmal. Over the past month, not including this past weekend when the game was on sale for $10, over the past month, the peak concurrent player was 52. And that was almost a month ago. That was March 3rd. And so in the past month, the most amount, and this is a faction, this is supposed to be a large scale faction think of a PlanetSide game where the factions controlling the map, something similar to that, a large scale factions versus factions game, and they had 52 people playing it. This developer note, when we went ahead and read it and then, correlated that with the current playing numbers, wasn't all that shocking. So let's put a pause there, Brian, and now talk about our in-game experience. So we jumped in there Friday night, and when you first load in, they've got a tooltip system that will tell you how to do little things, which I thought was cool. It gave you the option to get rid of it or keep it if you wanted to. And then right in the spawn area, they had a number of, I don't know what you'd call them. They were kind of like artifacts. They were like big stones, and you walked up to them and pressed E, and they gave you information. And there was maybe
pretty much things for giving. Yeah, I mean, they would give you kind of what the world was about and get you set up. Because I mean, this thing is based on story. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is based on mythology, and so kind of throwing you in the world and not telling you anything. I mean, like Ark would. Doesn't really match this type of a game. So one thing I saw in chats, people recommending that you go and read those before you play.
Yes, absolutely. I think 8, 10, maybe 12 of those things. There weren't a whole lot of them, but they had those in there. So we read through those, and then it was trying to figure out how to get in a group. And from what we could tell, there was no group invite system. There was no GUI for the clan. I had to do like C invite infected
we had to go
like that.
We were making guesses because I was like, okay, we'll try this, and we were typing commands, and there was no place that it actually had anything for grouping. We could not find a menu that would come up, any key that you could press in front of somebody. And so that was one thing that was kind of strange to me, since there's such a focus on grouping.
It may exist. We just couldn't find it. And the text
we were hitting all kinds of buttons. We just did it via command line.
Yes. And that worked. We got in a clan, and the clan system itself actually worked pretty well. When people were running away, you could see I think there was a little triangle above their head and then maybe a red outline or something like that. So that part worked well. I don't believe we could PvP. I think we did hit each other in a battle. I don't remember taking damage. So I don't.
I was using the bow and arrow, and I'm sure
we had to have been hit
if it was possible. Yeah.
So I don't think that we had to worry about hitting each other in that system, and it worked out. After that, right off the bat, when we were looking at those stones to get more information, Brian said, "Nick, you're falling through the earth. You're falling through the landscape, and there are these rocks that you can jump on, and your player looks like they're standing on top of the rock. To everybody else, it looks like they are falling through and colliding with the earth. It's kind of just a constant fall motion that your character's making. And the same thing happened when Brian went up on the rock and I stepped down. And that was just right off the bat was not a great first impression. The grouping
especially
system,
being at the starter area. I mean, if you're going to fix bugs, especially fix them when the first 10 feet of where you start. Because that was just strange. I've not seen a game have that so consistent to where there's a bug that you were able to do. And I was like, oh, let me stand there, and like no matter what, it did it, and it did it on multiple rocks. Like we moved around to go to the different ones, and it was doing it on all those rocks that were turned sideways.
So it was just kind of a lackluster starting experience, struggling with the group system. Not that this rock thing was game breaking, but aesthetically, it was just a kind of unexcusable to have an issue like that in your spawn on a game that has been out for 8 months. It had been the game first showed up July 31st of 2018. So it's not like the game was straight off of the presses. I mean, this game had been out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so there you go. You've got that. Then we started with the gameplay itself. The menu system was actually pretty in-depth and detailed, and actually was quite, I found it quite pleasing, the whole system and the way you unlocked things and crafted things.
Yep.
That whole system was good.
It was fairly intuitive. I mean, there wasn't really any moments where I'm like, okay. Now, the one thing that I would say is they could work the different types together a little bit better, because I was struggling to say, all right, well, I need to make this specific item, and there wasn't as much of a flow you had to click a category. You actually had to click an item, and then it listed items below that, and so you just didn't know. I was like, I'm trying to make I think it was a bandage at the time, and I couldn't find the bandage button, and I was being attacked, and I was just like, I gotta find this. I'm clicking different things, and I couldn't get to it in time, because there was a little bit of flow there. But as far as the graphics itself, everything looked very nice. But that was the only area in the UI that I was like, I wish that was a little easier to go through.
Yeah. So we played for a little while. We screwed around. We hit some rocks, hit some trees, gathered some materials. And the straw that really broke the camel's back, we played for, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half. The straw that broke the camel's back was it a wolf or some type of dog thing that attacked us?
Yeah, it was a wolf.
It was a wolf, and the health bar of the wolf was glitching out. It showed up right when we started attacking the wolf, and then it just disappeared. And the wolf killed Brian and I, and we were like, okay, this is pointless. And that was kind of it. So there was just too many...
I'm just backing away, shooting at it, and I'm just like, I have no idea how close I am to killing
it. Killed
which
you,
is a big,
and then started targeting me.
Big deal when you're sitting there like, okay, should I try to retreat? Should I be trying to figure out a way out of this? I have no idea. You know, if I'm one shot away, if I'm 2 shots away, it was just frustrating.
So the game itself played all right, but the number of little irritating things in the let me pull up my Steam here, and I can tell you exactly how long I actually had the game open. Just the amount of little screwy things that we had to deal with in the 62 minutes that I had the game open, let's call 50 of them playable minutes, was enough where you and I didn't go back and play it anymore after that. And I guess it explains why, if there's these little frustrations and issues on the simplest of mechanics, right off the bat, I can only imagine what some of the later game mechanics look like, which I think would explain why their 24-hour, or what would explain why their 1 month average, minus this week, because again, the game was on sale, minus this week was 52 concurrent players across a whole bunch of servers. So that's Rend. And I think that's going to be the end of Rend in my estimation.
Yeah. Now, this is something that when we were talking on Friday, that I brought up, or maybe it was after when we were actually playing. I had mentioned one of the big things that they were using as a selling point to convince us that this was going to be a good game was the fact that they had developers that had worked on various AAA studios.
A lot of Blizzard devs, yeah.
Blizzard devs, everything else. And I had pointed out that there are a number of games that have done this, but they never seem to be able to quite pull it together. And my thinking is they understand whatever aspect of game development they're in. They understand that. I mean, they're working at a AAA studio and they understand one thing. But the problem is when you work at a studio like that, you do one very specific thing for that studio generally. There's not somebody who's in charge of all these different aspects like you do on a small team. When you're on a small team, okay, you may be doing programming and animation, or you may be doing modeling, animation, rigging, like you're doing
the bathrooms.
And you might be cleaning the bathroom at the studio.
And that's
as well.
Not a joke.
Yes.
I mean, small business. That's what you do in small business. I mean, you're doing everything. You're paying the power bill and programming the game and cleaning the bathroom.
And so I am wondering, just from seeing the past experiences with this, is that a selling point in early access, small? I guess this would be considered kind of an indie company. I mean, if it's less than 16, I think it was like 12 developers or something like that.
Doesn't indie stand for independent developer? Isn't that what indie stands for?
You can, and you could have a small group.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I mean they're literally.
So this would be an indie studio.
Yeah.
But is that really a selling point when they say, "Hey, I've worked at this studio and I've worked at this AAA studio"? I kind of view that means that maybe they're not. Maybe they don't have the experience. Maybe they understand. They've seen the overall picture, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they know the overall picture.
Yeah, no, I'd say this: the fact that they've worked in an environment like an EA or a Blizzard or an Activision would indicate that
there's a level of experience.
Exactly. There. I mean, Blizzard is Blizzard because of who they are and the quality products they make. I would assume that they've got a pretty rigorous hiring process, and it's not that every little developer will take every Joe Schmo, but in when you're a small development house, you probably don't get to take the best pick of people in that field. That's how they work for the bigger companies. That's just how it works. I mean, the best car technicians a lot of the times work for large automotive groups. A group of dealerships that own and the smaller single car dealership people struggle to get the best techs because there's a whole bunch of reasons, financially, experience-wise, resume-wise. There's a whole bunch of reasons. So I think it depends, Brian. I think it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. They've worked in a big studio.
Them? I mean, the thing is with the big studio, they don't have to see it all the way to completion. Like you have such a large team that everything isn't reliant on you. And I think when they get to these small teams, all of a sudden they're having to, from beginning to end, just kind of see it through, even when it doesn't seem like it's going to work. I think it's much more strenuous to work on a small team like that because you're like, as they have found, like sometimes you don't get all the numbers that you want. Sometimes everything doesn't work out how you want it to. I think that for them, they probably found it frustrating when maybe another development team that is more of a passion project would say, you know what, sure, we're not getting the numbers we want, but we're going to see it past this. Because these guys pretty much, in a way, have stepped away and started working. I mean, they pretty much said it. They stepped away and they're working on other projects. If a bug comes up, they'll fix it, right? That's the level of support that they're doing. But obviously, this isn't a passion project because they would be like, well, you know what, we believe in this. We're going to keep going. And they're not. They didn't. I mean, they pretty much blazed through early access, alpha, and then early access. I mean, 8 months is
nothing.
That's not a very long alpha and then early access. 9 total patches. I mean, they did 9 total patches.
I'm looking at a report here from VentureBeat that says as over the 7 years of the Red Dead Redemption 2 development, there were teams as high as 1,000 developers, artists, designers, writers, and more working on that game at any point. So you're talking about when you are responsible for how the horse. I mean, there would have been a person responsible for how does the horse that you ride move and interact with the environment. That is their scope of what they're responsible for. And it's if you've played Red Dead Redemption 2, you know that was
they do it perfectly,
incredibly well.
I mean, that's the thing. They go through, and that's kind of my point though, is the focus. Like they have one thing that they are a specialist at, and they are bringing to the table. They're working in a group where they probably have various specialties that kind of make up the whole thing. Of that's the person, you're the lead on that. When this topic comes up, you're the one that they ask because you know what, you have the most experience in that. Then when you get to this type of a development here, nobody knows everything. I mean, that's the problem. Nobody knows every single aspect. That's why those companies will have 1,000 people on there with a very diverse spread of what they understand. When you get into little things like this, I mean, it gets tough. Obviously, you know, they didn't do all, from what we could tell, they didn't even do all the stuff with UI. It's hard to find UI people on small teams. It's hard to find people who rig. It's hard to find people who make models and things like that, or make character models. And so usually if you have a limited number of people you can get, for them, they made new character models and did all that. So one of the people that they brought on was a character modeler. Did they bring on a full-time UI guy? Probably not. And so they were probably piecing that together. Maybe they brought someone on temporarily. I mean, you make sacrifices that you don't have to make in those very large studios because there is somebody who understands all of it, so, each piece.
So I think we can say that it can be a blessing and a curse depending on what the game is and what the whole situation is. But but before we move off this, Brian, I want to pose to you and to everybody else. I'm going to give you my personal opinion. I think it's a good thing that they are being public about what they're doing here. They're essentially killing the game is not the right word to use because they're keeping the servers alive, but they are telling people straight up right now, pretty much don't buy our game.
Yeah.
And
I think
that's respectable.
I mean, that's the thing is I think they have high expectations having come from those studios. I mean, that's one thing that you'll get from that. This in their mind is a failure and they're accepting it.
But that's my question though. I don't think we see this enough in the games that we talk about. We see games that hobble along with developers, and I don't have an example to use, but we've seen this 100 times. We've got
Z1 Battle Royale.
Well, I don't even know.
I mean, before they took it over, when it was H1Z1.
You could make that argument.
I mean, if you look through, they look at Just Survive and their patching schedule they did.
Okay.
I mean,
my point more is that there seems to be this rose-colored glasses look from some of these companies when you can see, based on the amount of people playing the game and the reception, that the game is not liked and not doing very well. And some of these companies just, I think, put these blinders on and don't look at these news. And I know for a fact,
like DayZ.
Well, DayZ. Well, and here's another. And no, you're spot on actually about H1Z1 Battle Royale, because Adam Clegg will tweet shit out like current players don't matter. Users, logged in users. It's blinders. It's like we don't understand how the whole thing works. And there is an incredible amount of respect that these developers have gained, I think, in my opinion, by being very upfront and very open with the community, because they could have just done this launch letter and let it sit for months without doing an update.
There's probably people that turn around and are playing this game quite a bit. I mean, there's probably a very small. I mean, with any game, you'll get somebody that's the game they play, even if it's a horrible game. I'm not saying it's a horrible game, but even if it's a horrible game, you'll get somebody who plays that game. And I think that we're seeing that with the H1Z1 Just Survive people that are saying, hey, why couldn't, but I'm saying as far as the game that was pulled.
Oh, okay. I got you.
With the Just Survive, it was pulled. I mean, we said, well, why didn't you just release it to the community? Why didn't you just do something to where the community could have it? These guys are saying, you know what, you can keep playing. It's not like they shut it down like that. So the people who put in money into it, they can still play it if they want to. The people that are into it, they can play it, and they'll probably keep it up. And hopefully, if people get in there and it ends up being a much better game, you know, it's not like it was horribly broken. It wasn't all the bugs that we've seen in Just Survive and games like that. You know, maybe it will build up over time to where they'll be like, oh, we'll put out a couple more updates for it. I mean, that's what they're saying if people play it.
Yeah, they peaked at 157 players on Sunday, which is not a lot, but it's triple their previous month's high number there. So, long story short, I mean, I wouldn't recommend you buy the game, just because of the fact that there's no more updates. If you've got $10 burning a hole in your pocket and you're maybe looking for a couple of hours to do something with a couple of other people, I mean, maybe. But I really do like the fact that they were so open about it and are.
I mean, at $10, it's under $10. If you want to go check it out, there could be some. You'll get $10 worth out of it of playing. I mean, there is a progression system. We barely touched the surface in an hour. It might be just one that's fun to run around and see. I mean, it's got a full crafting and building system. It might be worth your time to check out and just to give it a chance, because it's really hard in this day and age with how games are being released. It could be a much better game than we realize.
Yeah.
But most people don't give it the time anymore to get to that stage to even find it out.
Yeah, and I'm from reading the reviews and whatnot that we had read over the game. The reviewers are not positive. The recent reviews, only 46% of them are positive. A lot of people in the comments are saying the game is not anywhere near being ready for launch. The beginning of the game is fun, but the end game and the mid game kind of lack significantly.
It's like they never got to finish it.
Well, and everybody says one thing unanimously with almost all of these reviews and recommendations. It's an amazing concept or an amazing idea, and it is. It's a very, very good concept, and the general consensus is that it was just poorly executed. If that's due to, as they said, finite resources being people, finite resources being cash, whatever it may be, they just were unable to make it happen. But again, they're not dragging the community along with this whole trick and pony show of woe is me, we're going to remake the game. They just said, hey, we're not going to keep having these 18 people develop a game that 50 people are playing. So if you want to buy it, fine. And they're probably going to keep it on sale till April 12th. So at this point, it'll be on sale for literally 3 weeks when it hits that date. So they're being very upfront, and there's something commendable about that. It seems to be lost in this day and age with our games that we talk about. So that is Rend.
Now, all right. And now after the show, we had spoken a little bit about a game, and so Jaws of Extinction.
Yes.
And I was being very grumpy because I'll give a very high level view of why I was grumpy. Their character model is from a graphic software that is known for some of the games that are very R to X rated on Steam are all made in this graphic software. And so I was judging the game purely based on the fact that I saw this character, which instantly I go to a place and say, okay, that just tells me that this is this kind of person. So Nick, in his infinite wisdom, who's always calm, said, well,
try living with me or working with me.
Level-headed one.
Yeah, punching holes in sheetrock and everything else. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So Nick said, well, why don't you reach out and talk to them? Because I was just like, I was just saying,
you were making some very broad claims without knowing anybody there.
But I say assumptions that I make based on
broad assumptions,
understanding this software, right? And so Nick said, well, why don't you reach out and talk to him? So I did. I messaged them on Twitter.
Oh, really?
And they got back to me.
I didn't know that.
And so I had a conversation with one of their developers, and I just said, because at first I don't think he understood what I meant, because I just said, are you concerned about the how people might view your game based on the connotation of the software that your character model comes from? And he was a little bit defensive at first, and then I explained a little bit more thoroughly of, just there's games that are released and things that are kind of happening in the background that this software is used to make. He says, okay, I understand what you're saying.
Could you draw some parallels between when people use the Unreal Health kit that PUBG used in their game, and now it is associated that as the PUBG health kit is kind of what you're saying with this, but a different connotation with what it is.
But yeah, I mean, it pretty much whenever a game comes out on Steam that just has some sort of crazy sexual things happening in it,
there's a whole category of those sex.
There's a whole category of those
sex-rated games on Steam, yes, and they're actually quite popular if you go and look at them.
Yeah, and pretty much all of those are done in the software, and so it is the software for doing this. And I've never seen someone use it otherwise.
We should do a podcast about this software.
No. And so I'd never seen anyone use it otherwise in a legitimate purpose. And so that was my concern going into this. And so I spoke with him and I just said, what do you have to say about it? And he said, to be honest, and this is going to kind of correlate to what we were just speaking about. He's like, we haven't been able to, I mean, it's very tough to find a character modeler. I know this. It's very, very difficult to find a character modeler because they get taken up immediately. If you're looking for a job and you're good at art, look at character modeling, because those guys are hired by these companies because they're so rare. Good ones are so rare. And so he said, and he explained, he went through and he explained the process that they're using. He says, we got our character from here, and then we import it into this other software, and then we do this stuff to kind of render it. And so he went through and showed me that he actually knew what he was talking about. And they were doing it because that was the easiest and best way to get a high quality model for the best price with their limited, as you said, finite resources, which these groups do have. And so he said, so here's why we did it, and here's what we did. And I was instantly like, okay, I understand that. Having done, I do game development, I've gone through the struggle of how do we get characters that aren't the same as every other character on the marketplace? Like, what do you do? That's a very tough question to answer because it's very difficult. I mean, you could pay thousands of dollars to have somebody make you a character model that's correct. And so they did that. And, that for me was like, okay, I'm willing to give this game a chance, because there's not a person on their team that said, was going like, hey, I use this software all the time and it's the best. They were saying, very utilitarian, this is the best way for us to get a character model in the game. And that's true. I mean, for them, for the way that they're doing it, that's the best way to get a character in the game that looks good. And so I'm willing to accept that and give it a chance. And so I just wanted to say, I'm willing to give it a chance and try to look past that. Because every time I see
Brian, I'm very proud of you. And I think I'm going to use this, since we are always off the rails anyway on this program. Brian was very passionate. Brian and I were in a full, not a yelling match, but you and I were arguing, like literally almost yelling at each other last week after the show about this. Not because we were pissed off at each other, but trying to stand our points. And I'm glad that you reached out to them and got a satisfactory conclusion. I think in general, everybody does this, and you just need somebody to push you. And now you could have been 100% right in your you could have found out that your assumption was 100% accurate with their response. And
I mean, they could have had a full-time perv working on there. That's what I was pretty much saying to Nick last time. You know what I'm saying? That's what I said. I was like, I don't want to support when. And they were like, well, we weren't looking at it from that perspective. Exactly. Like, we were coming at it as originally. Yeah. How do we find? And that's what Nick assumed. He was like, well, maybe they just viewed that was the best. Okay, we looked at all the options. That's the best. That's a good looking model, right? We're not looking at all the other whatever else might be tied to that type of stuff.
And most of the time, it's money,
which it is true.
It is the best, it is the best you can probably get for the cheapest amount of money. And unfortunately, like it or hate it, sexy or not, that is the way that the cookie crumbles. That is almost
now. This is the thing is
the issue.
It would be very tough to do, but there are so many high quality models on that marketplace.
Oh, it's incredible.
That if they could just, the company, I just don't know why they don't switch to. I mean, obviously there's money in it in that other area, and they must be making enough to where it's not worth it for them to go down a more legitimate avenue. But those legitimate assets are there. People are making them.
So what is this game?
All right. So Jaws of Extinction, it is a survival. It does have zombies in it. So this is an adventure, action, gore, violent indie RPG. And so it's got wildlife, it's got military in there, survivors, wandering dead. It looks like a really good game, and that's why I was like, all except for that one little thing that I was hung up on. Like everything else in the game looks like could be really fun. And so they're going to be releasing soon. It's not out yet, but they are putting out. They have different patch notes and everything. So if you're interested in it, we'll have a link to their webpage, jawsofextinction.com. It's a survival sandbox, which we've been saying there's not very many good survival sandboxes out there at the moment that are really that in depth. So give it a chance. I mean, it is a small team of developers, but visually they're doing a good job. It looks good. And if it plays well, it could be a really good fun game to play.
All right. Well, man, I'm glad to hear this. I'm glad that they responded, which was we have found out over the years, not always easy to get a response from a development team. Yeah. Good on them.
Well, and that's the thing is, I understood that I think he was kind of, I understand what he was worried about. Like initially in the conversation, he had said to me, if you're just going to trash the game and talk about that one thing, just please don't bring up our game. I mean, he was very respectful about it, but he said, just, then please don't talk about it.
Which is kind of what I said.
Point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't, that's the thing is I didn't want to sit there and say this game is horrible because of this one thing. So what I kept talking to him rather than just taking that as an answer. I said, and here's I just explained, here's why I'm thinking this. And then he totally loosened up and just started talking to me about it. We talked about game development. It was a good conversation, and we both ended it on good terms. And so I think that that was good, because you've understood dealing with people. Some people are just jerks. Like once they think you're coming at them in an attacking manner or thinking something negative about them, like they lash back out, and they didn't do that. He sat and talked to me about it, and we were cool by the end of the conversation. So it was good. It was a good talk. And if you haven't, I didn't bring it up on last week's show just because I wanted to talk to Nick about that first. And I'm glad I did, because it gave me a chance to, now I look at it and it doesn't bother me anymore. So hopefully for other people, maybe people who know what DayZ 3 is, maybe that'll help them to look at it and be like, okay, don't judge that game based off this. Judge it based on how fun it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. We will have, and hopefully, and since they've been responsive to you, maybe when the game comes out,
once they come, where they launch their alpha.
Yeah, maybe we could have a conversation. That'd be good.
Very good. All right, so we had mentioned this game a little bit. DayZ. Speaking of games that maybe didn't live up, there's actually a trailer.
There is. Very good trailer.
That they did. Yeah, and there's talking through the whole thing. It's not just a bunch of video and music. So, but let's go and play this, because they talk about pretty much this release and a lot of different features that are currently in the DayZ that's out there. Now, this is the standalone, not the mod.
Correct. This is the DayZ standalone, which I believe is available on the Xbox and the PlayStation. That's This is the trailer. It's called This is DayZ.
Welcome to Chernarus, survivor. With beautiful valleys and breathtaking views, this was once a popular tourist destination. Now, it's a post-apocalyptic wasteland struck by an unknown epidemic. You are one of the few immune to the virus, but that's where your luck runs out. Washed up along the shore, you must face the harsh and unforgiving open world you now find yourself in, with only one goal: survive as long as possible by any means necessary. With up to 60 other players on the same server, it's only a matter of time before you run into a bandit. Or two. In DayZ, when you die, you die. Permadeath ensures that when you kick the bucket, you lose everything and respawn back along the coast. A bullet to the head isn't the only danger in DayZ, as the game has a complex set of survival mechanics. Ignore your hunger or thirst long enough, and you'll be on your way to an early grave. But take note, consume something of questionable sterility and you may fall sick. Chernarus is big, but finding your way doesn't have to be a shot in the dark. Use maps, signs, tourist trails, compasses, and even the stars to navigate your way around 230 square kilometers of vast and varied landscapes. The rule is, if you can find a town, you can find the loot. Built-up areas will have more to scavenge, but they will also have more infected. Stay quiet, stay hidden, stay clear. If you have no choice but to fight, melee combat can offer protection, but you don't need to rely on your fists, as any item can be used as an improvised weapon, some more effective than others. If you start bleeding, you will eventually die. So, wrap it up. The dynamic weather of DayZ can take a turn for the worse at any moment, so sometimes it's best to stay put and prepare for your travels until the bad weather passes. With the fall of civilization, there is no more light pollution, and nights in Chernarus get dark. Use various light sources to keep properly oriented, or to strategically mark locations. When interacting with other players, DayZ's in-game voice chat and gestures system lets you easily communicate your friendly intentions. And in DayZ, communication goes a long way. Guns and ammo are rare, and DayZ's authentic mechanics mean you'll have to load your weapons manually, one bullet at a time. Be sure to keep your weapons in good condition. Damaged guns might jam, which can be the difference between life and death. Not all wildlife will try to kill you, however. With various animals roaming the countryside, you can happily live off the land, provided you know how to hunt and cook. Sometimes it's not possible to avoid populated areas. Chernarus is home to numerous hotspots where you can find the best loot, but be warned, you're more likely to come across hostiles in these parts, so prepare for a gunfight. Of course, what's the point of surviving if you have nothing to live for? Once you've mastered scavenging and survival, DayZ opens up and provides a much richer experience full of emotions. Be a lone wolf, team up with friends, learn the lay of the land, fix a car, build a base for your community, raid the bases of others, host your own radio show, negotiate, set up an ambush, take captives, restrain and force-feed people, protect fresh spawns, hunt down bandits, or just enjoy the many other types of emergent gameplay DayZ offers. Be a hero, a villain, or anything in between. The choice is yours. This is DayZ. This is your story. See you in Chernarus, survivor.
All right. You think they'll let us host the podcast? Then they mentioned that they've got a radio station. You think we could get like a live feed into the game? We wanted to do that with H1Z1 with Survivor.
I wonder if that came up based on maybe them seeing that H1Z1 was discussing doing that, because I mean, you know, maybe it comes back to the fact that we brought up, hey, can we do a radio show?
They were like, what the hell?
Never know.
We were like,
that
hey,
would be funny.
Across every server, can we have like, they had like, what, 12 channels or something like that in the walkie-talkies? Yeah. We were like, can we have one of those channels? Or we'll just broadcast
our radio.
We want to broadcast our podcast across your
Because that's
game.
what we were talking about in H1Z1. We wanted to have a radio station. And here they actually did it. So that's pretty interesting that it's in there.
Yes.
Very
well done trailer.
I've never pronounced it as Chernarus.
I was pronounced as
Chernarus is how I've...
Yes.
That's how I've... Oh, this is like them actually pronouncing it to the world, or this girl doesn't know what she's talking about, just reading a script. I'm assuming they told her how to pronounce the world. So
I think they did. This is a very well-produced video.
So this has to be the official pronunciation. It's like GIF versus GIF.
Yeah, well, it's going to be called... Well, it's going to be called Chernarus. That's how it's going to stay. But yeah, very well done trailer. I mean, so it was about 4 minutes long, so a little lengthy, but I think it did a very good job of laying out what DayZ and what a lot of these other games are. I mean, Brian, there was some lore in there that there was an infections, you were immune. Yeah, it did a good job of laying all that groundwork. They explained
that there's an end game to it. It's not just about, I mean, so there are definitely some Arma vibes in there. I mean, it's the throwback to Arma as far as a lot of the graphics and movements, but they've added a lot more to it where they showed farming and just all those other aspects a base building. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, right now, so it's been out. I think it came out of early access a year ago, or was it? No, actually, it came out of early access. It came out of early access at the end of this past year, so about 4 months ago.
Yeah,
just 5 months ago almost. Is when it went to 1.0, and still it's very mixed reviews on Steam. But do you think it's because it took them so long to release? I mean, the thing is this was hot. This would have been excellent if they were released it 3 years ago.
I think there's a whole bunch of reasons. I first of all, I think is that they took a lot of steps backward when they went from
the mod.
They went when they went from the mod to the standalone. That takes some steps backwards. And honestly, as we've talked about, the whole craze behind zombie games has kind of died off. And there's that. And then there's also just the negative stigma. I mean, Donnie says here, I should probably re-download it sometime. That's kind of the reaction with a lot of people.
He did say they basically let the modding community finish the game.
He said they are, they're basically going to let them finish the game.
So, I mean, that would be the better thing to do. I mean, that Arma is a very certain type of game, and then they just opened it up for modding to where it created all these other genres of games. And so the mods are generally better than the base product. And if they can open up and put extensive modding in it, I think that's the one thing that would save this game.
Yeah. Firebomb is saying zombies only died off because there hasn't been a good game. When a good game comes out, everyone will play it. It's interesting because they've put a lot of work into it, and they're pretty consistent with their updates with DayZ, but it's the negative stigma, Brian. It's I played it right off the launch, right when it came out,
and it didn't have all these features.
Yeah, I spent $40 or $60 on it right when it came out, and it was like, what the hell? $40 for this new and improved game, and you've took away literally half. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say off the start, when the game first launched, the standalone, I would say half of the features that were available in the mod were not in the standalone, and that pissed a lot of people, including myself, off, as it should. You're telling me to come play this new game?
I've never purchased it because it's, first of all, they've never really had it on sale. They've never had it. I think more than 10% was like their highest sale.
Yeah, they're not a game that their game has never been their game has never been $10. How about that?
Yeah. Well, I've even been waiting for it to go to 20. It's never been at near $20. And so I was like, well, once it gets closer to 20, because that's honestly, when you have a game that's not being very well received, I figure at some point, unless you don't want people filling up the servers, you would lower the price a little bit. But they have kept it right around, it's 1 cent below $45, which is not the best deal when your game has mixed reviews.
Yeah, that's
a limited number of people playing it.
Yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, good trailer, and we ought to do that for game. We haven't done that for Game of the Week in a while. We ought to do that again.
We'll have to do that on a day that I'm not there.
Well, yeah, I mean, or you could buy the game.
I don't know. I want to buy it for Game of the Week unless it's somehow awesome now.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't hold your breath on that. Every time I've played it, it's been lackluster. And the problem is it's a very hardcore game. And because it's a hardcore game, you can't just jump into it. It involves a time investment, and that's not always the easiest thing to do with a game that's got a negative stigma. So that's DayZ.
All right. So we have a lot of. Actually, should we get ready to do a game giveaway? I guess I could get one ready here. Or do we want to jump in, because we have a lot of news related to kind of a general theme of topic.
For whatever you want to do, you're steering the ship. I'm just here pushing the buttons and keeping it on the air.
All right, thanks. Well, here, I'll go ahead and I'll get the game giveaway set up. I don't know. Do you want to do the ARC one really quick? Because it's pretty.
I'll mention our feedback form again one more time. It's infectionpodcast.com/feedback if you want to go ahead and check out on that. We're looking for the top 4 games that you'd like us to talk about each week on the program. It's infectionpodcast.com/feedback. Fill it out. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback on what are the top games that we need to cover here every week. And I do want to mention something quickly. We'll get into their notes here maybe a little bit later on, but Conan Exiles is actually free this month on PlayStation Plus. And we've talked a lot about Conan. I'm going to go ahead and install this in. I've played enough of it on PC to know how it feels. I'm curious how this game, similarly to Ark, how it feels on the console. So if you're a PlayStation Plus member, you can go ahead and get Conan Exiles for free with PlayStation Plus for the next probably 15 days or something like that.
Yep, and there's
actually,
another game on there too. Yep, and there's another one on there as well.
The Surge.
The Surge. So there's 2 games. They've been doing 2 games lately.
Yep.
They did the same thing last month. So there's 2 free games. Get it on there. It'll add it to your account, and it's the same as purchasing it. So it's not like it goes away after a certain period of time.
Yep. So check that out.
All right. So let's go ahead and do this. It'll be exclamation point giveaway, and 60 points. So if you've been listening or watching for the last hour, you'll have enough points for that. But we're going to be giving away a copy of Paradigm. And this is a adventure indie point and click comedy funny game. I actually like this kind of game, now that I'm giving it away. But it is it looks like a really fun game to play, and it has very positive ratings. $15 currently on Steam, but it's kind of that old style of the point and click adventure that everybody enjoyed playing back in the 90s. So it looks like a lot of fun. If no one enters, then I'll just take it and redeem it myself. So,
boy, that's weird how you set that up. I might just I'll have to sign in on my alt account and just to steal the
just
game.
so you can enter.
Yes, so I can enter the contest. All right. Yep. And here, if you're not joining us live, you should be. We're here live every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Infection Podcast. All right. Where to next, Mr. Aldridge?
All right. So we've got a lot of epic news that's come up. And
yes, as we've been told, the shills, Epic is paying us heavy sums of money to talk about them on this program.
That would be nice. Yes.
I know. Wouldn't that be great? I wish.
So one thing that they're changing here or are doing here soon is that they're going to be putting those Epic Game Store exclusives.
Yep.
That we've been talking about will be available on the Humble Store.
Isn't that interesting?
So one thing that, I mean, for us, that's something that where we do have a Epic affiliate account, but we could also just through our normal Humble Bundle affiliate account that we have, we could give links to that, and it will be very similar. So only when you're doing the special Humble Bundle packs that come up, that's the only time you can set how much you give. But when you buy an individual title, there's a certain percentage that goes to each thing automatically. So this will be very similar to buying it probably in the Epic Store, but I would think that some would go to charity if you did it this way as well. So they'll have go to some sort of charity, and then the rest would go to the developers and to the Epic company. So, but that was something interesting. So because I know that PH and I had this discussion of, well, what about them selling keys to Humble? Because that's one thing that Steam does, is they allow the developer to generate a bunch of keys, and then they dump them on key sites, and they give them to Humble, and they do all these different things. So this is one way to where they're actually kind of cultivating, rather than just dump keys out in the wild to go onto those third-party sites. They're cultivating a relationship with this company instead and allowing them to sell it. So,
yeah, and yeah, I think so there's a couple of things that it's good for. I guess it's good for nonprofits and charities that are listed on Humble Bundle's website.
Yep.
It's good for and it's good for creators who are affiliated through which a lot of Twitch streamers and YouTubers are partnered with the Humble Bundle program and get a small kickback when people buy games, which is, by the way, one thing that Steam has never allowed anybody to do, which I think is stupid, because everybody else allows that. So, that's how we fund our trip out to PAX, for example, is through Humble Bundle and through programs like that, which unfortunately Steam just doesn't offer. Now, with Humble Bundle games through Steam, you could make the argument that, well, they kind of do, But Steam itself is never really offered.
But not every game is even available.
Yeah.
On Humble Bundle. So, I mean, there is a limit to it. I mean, because I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh yeah, Rend.
Oh yeah, Rend.
I said, hey,
but I don't know if that's a developer decision or not.
I'm not sure. I had said, hey, is it available on Humble Bundle? And it was not listed there. So there is a limit. Not every game is posted on there.
Yeah.
It doesn't match 1-to-1 the Steam store. All right. And then also another game was announced. This Anno 1800 is going to be exclusive. Now, one thing that we had talked about with Metro Exodus is that rather than doing this last minute shift, what they're doing is you can actually pre-order, you can pre-purchase on Steam up until launch. And then once it actually launches, then they don't sell it on Steam anymore. And it's only available for that year, whatever they do for the exclusivity on the Epic Store. So if someone is dead set and saying, I'm only going to get this when it's on Steam, and they're doing that mantra, okay, well then buy it now. Put your money where your mouth is and pre-order it. If you're not going to pre-order it, and you want to play it in the next year, you're going to buy it on the Epic Store. And so I don't know how much of an argument that they'll really be able to have. I mean, if they want it on Steam, they'll be able to get it on Steam.
Yeah.
Buy it on Steam right now.
This is kind of an interesting
I've never seen
idea.
this happen.
Yeah.
I've never seen it done this way.
No, this is it's almost unfair to call it an exclusive because it's not. It's like saying, I don't know, it's like saying something is exclusively available in a store. And I understand pre-order exclusive, but it's just weird.
This isn't a pre-order exclusive. You can pre-order it on Steam.
But that's the thing that's so weird about it is it's like
it's a post-release exclusive.
And that's what's so weird is I don't remember anything ever being like this.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be more natural to have the opposite. Okay, I'm going to have a game that's exclusive on pre-orders. Okay, then after the initial release, then you can buy it anywhere. Like I would expect to see that, but this is the first I've seen where, all right, you could pre-order it anywhere, but as soon as it's released, you can only buy it in one place. Because I know they don't want, I mean, there's people that are saying, oh, how many times have we heard, I'm only going to buy it if it's on Steam?
Now, you've got until April 16th to pre-order it. That's kind of the key here.
Yep.
So you've got, a couple days to pre-order, 2 weeks to pre-order it.
This is almost identical to what happened with Exodus, though. Exodus was the exact same way. If you pre-ordered it, you were still getting the game.
But they're
just announcing it beforehand.
Correct. They're announcing it beforehand.
Whoever bought the game on Steam, pre-ordered, gets all the updates, gets everything exactly the same on Exodus.
Yeah. Weird.
So it's really not any different.
No. So hey,
it's just people's perception.
$60 if you want it, it is yours on Steam or Epic.
Yep.
Oh, and on Uplay too, because Ubisoft is publishing it. Yeah. So it's on all three platforms.
Yep. And then also, they had made I guess there was a talk at GDC, and they were saying, we don't want to do that again as far as the ordeal that happened with Exodus. And one thing they did say is they had been talking to that team for months, and they said, we don't want to throw them under the bus, but it's just timing where it came together, and it's important to their business. We decided to do it together. We both knew the potential for the thing to happen in the communication. But the thing is I think what Epic was saying is we told them before, like this was all dealt with way beforehand. The development team decided not to make it public. This was not an Epic thing. Epic was totally open with them. I mean, the only thing is they couldn't announce it until Epic had announced that they had a store.
That's kind of why it's a he said, she said kind of thing. Because I'm sure they would say, well, Epic was dragging their feet with getting the damn store launched so that we couldn't really do that. So they're each going to point, because that was a nightmare. That was a PR nightmare.
Because I think that was just a weird timing issue. Yeah, because they couldn't bring it up before the store was announced, because that came out of the blue. I mean, that happened all of a sudden. And these guys announced it not too long after the store came out, if I remember correctly.
It was almost right away from what I remember.
So, I mean, really, there is no real at fault of this. They both said it when they could say it. They both, I mean, it was announced as soon as it could be announced. It just, the timing didn't work out well. And as you can see, they probably had the exact same kind of agreement going into this other game. And so now I would assume people have no reason to really be upset with it. They know going into the deal when they buy it, if you're going to pre-order it, like, what's the difference at that point? Other than if you want people to play with you, here would be the downside. I would assume it's using the Ubisoft backend to do teaming and things like that.
Yeah, probably.
So, so you really would have no downside of using Steam even.
In this case, probably not.
So that's pretty much, yeah. So that is them, they discuss, we'll have an article to it if you want to read more about that. And then one final Epic thing here. There was people in an uproar because everybody wants to be anti-Epic at the time. And someone was accusing that Epic had stolen artwork from them off of DeviantArt to make this some new assets in Fortnite.
Oh, this one, yeah. And this is not, by the way, not the first time Epic and Fortnite has been accused of ripping somebody else's intellectual property off. This has happened a whole bunch of times.
Yep. And so this was something where there was a person, an artist, who actually showed pictures and said, hey, this was stolen, this was based on my art. Now, one interesting thing is that artist it looks like he was actually faking the whole thing. He had edited the photos after the fact, and you can go back and actually look, and it shows you the original piece of art, which he was basing it on. There was like a thing wrapped around their waist, like a rope wrapped around their waist in a certain way, and supposedly they were copying that sort of stuff. He had gone in and photoshopped that in afterwards. So this was all someone else just trying to get some sort of a payout. And the problem with the internet is it's pretty good at keeping history.
Yeah.
Once he wasn't able to fake it.
Once Reddit, 4chan, or Twitter get on the hunt, it's game over. If
you ever posted that picture, that's the thing, is he was basing it on, they saw this on the internet. Okay, well, we can go all the way back to that point in time and see exactly what that picture looked like at that point in time. I just don't think that this artist had thought it through and actually realized how people on the internet are. So he pulled all those off, and it's no longer accessible to find those pictures. But that is kind of an Epic thing that came up that could have been kind of a big deal, but obviously when you fake it, it's not that big of a deal.
Pretty scummy, if you ask me.
Yep. He's kind of ruining his career as an artist.
His DeviantArt career? Yeah, I'm sure.
But I'm saying, if he's looking to get on with a studio or some sort of a company, and they want to go look and they pull up his name and it shows that he was trying to scam a company and lie, that's not going to look very good on his part. So,
all right. That's all the Epic news. As Saul called it, Infection the Botcast, and Epic made us play a couple sound effects here before we get out of here. So the Epic the Infection Botcast, that's what we do here on the show. So thanks, Epic. Wish you were paying us. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'll go knock on their door next time I'm up in Raleigh and say,
hey, you're right down the road.
Yeah, hey, I do a podcast. Will you give me money? I'm sure that'll go over.
It works every time.
Me and every other idiot.
They have so much money. They're willing to throw it around.
Yeah. Hey, I do hey, you stole my game idea. I talked about it on my podcast.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
What else we got?
Well, we do have some Fortnite updates here really quick. I don't know if we go on the Epic train, if we can just continue this full hour of Epic.
If you'd like to.
So they did release their 8.2, which had a new limited time event. And this is one called Floor is Lava. I don't know if people have ever played that game or seen people playing it where, they say the floor is lava and then everybody has to jump up on something.
Yeah.
Well, with this, it's kind of a King of the Mountain type of a game where it's the last one standing and the floor starts falling out. So this is a pretty interesting, looks like it'd be pretty fun. This is a totally different twist on the game. And so if you're interested in that is a limited time mode that they have. They have some new foraged items that regenerate health: coconuts, bananas, and peppers that you can find. They also have a new poison trap. in there. So now, as far as that game mode, it is you can build on the lava, but if you touch the lava, it will apply damage. It moves at a steady speed until the entire map is covered, and players are given a small number of materials every second. So,
because you
it's
can't
a timer
break
of-
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of a strategy there as well. So you have a few minutes into the match, and then the lava starts to rise. So that's a pretty interesting one. Other than that, I think it was just mostly patches and performance tweaks and things like that. I didn't see any other really big things. And then they did another content update for 8.20.1, which actually has a lot into it for being a .1. They have a limited time of mode of sniper shootout, which uses bows and arrows, and so in there they have the boom bow that you can use with it. And yeah, I think the boom bow, isn't that new?
It is.
That is a new item. So yeah, so they added it for this event. So yeah, so that is 8.20.1. So I think that's all of our. I don't know that we have any more epic news.
Yes. No more Epic news until next week when we get another paycheck from Epic. So
that was all they paid for this week.
Yep, that's all they paid for. So thanks to Epic for sponsoring this segment, and we'll delete any comments in chat that are anti-Epic. That's the policy. That's the agreement. That's the agreement we signed with them. Let's talk about a survival game here, Brian. We are after all of this the survival podcast. SCUM has released an update this week. They have taken the approach of very long strings for their update. So this is patch 0.1.29.12610, and that's not a date. It's not January.
But this is, for me, is better than, like, if you look at ROE, Ring of Elysium, what they do is the version number is the date. But the problem is when they release 2 or 3 patches in the same day, they have the exact same version number. So I do prefer this.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's funny that it's such a long update for this game. So they've done archery. I think they've added this as a skill. So that what they've done is that there are different types of bows that players will be using in the game. Depending on the type, bows are divided into recurves, which you probably remember from the H1Z1 days, takedowns, compounds, and crossbows. And there's some different ways that all of those perform. There's a couple of screenshots here. Here's a picture of the compound bow, the improvised bow, which is essentially a stick with some string on it, the recurve bow, which is a little stronger. And then there's a whole bunch of stats on here about.
What's interesting is they have all these different draw weights. Pretty much the how hard it is to pull back the string, and that determines the. So you need a certain level of strength.
You have
to be able to draw.
You have to put stuff into the skill.
Bow. Yeah. So if you have 5 points, you can draw the heaviest one. Actually, the heaviest is 100. But I think so. Like strength 5 will allow you to draw an 80. I don't know, is it 80 pounds probably? As far as pull.
Yeah.
And then 4 is 65, 3 is 50, 2 is 35, and 1 is 20. That's on one of them. So depending on whichever one you get, you may pick up a bow and it's like, oh, well, I can't even draw this thing. So you have to put some points into it.
I think this is good, especially the improvised bow. I think games like SCUM struggle with, because guns are such a limited resource, and melee sucks because you get hit when you're meleeing a zombie. But bows in H1Z1, bows were huge. They were a very big part of the game.
And in Rust, bows are huge.
Yes,
I mean, those are 2 games that had a high PvP, and bows played a big part. And I don't think very many other games have really been able to capture that.
Yeah, I mean, Ark has got bows and whatnot, but they're not very useful. But the games in which you have to kill a large amount of NPCs, zombies in the case of SCUM, or infected, whatever the hell they call them, using and having bows available all at once. So they've added the bows. They've also added the quivers, which is the holders that the bows use. And there's 3 different kinds of them that you can see here. Again, they've gone with the improvised route, a more reinforced, and then one that is made out of I don't know what you'd call backpack material.
Well, one's leather, so one's fabric, one's leather, and then one's like a military.
Yeah, I don't know what
fabric.
you'd call that stuff.
Yeah, it's made out of a military style backpack. Is what it looks like.
I know the word is right on the tip of my tongue, but so there's three different qualities of those, and
that determines the number and type of the arrow. So the military quiver can hold up to 3 types of arrows, and it's more durable. So the animal one can hold 2 types of arrows, and the improvised one can hold 1 type of arrow. So it does give you the nicer one that you find, rather than just having more arrows that you can hold. It actually lets you hold variations of arrows as well.
Yeah, which I think is pretty cool. They've also added a red dot into the game, which you can use on various guns. You can attach it to any rail, and the M16, the Tech 01 490 can carry it without any rails. So they've added that in there. And fire modes, which is something I hadn't even realized. And they say, yes, we've heard you like really well the first 1 trillion times, but and they admit that they should have added it in there sooner, but you know, game development is hard. So they now have got fully and semi-automatic modes. There's an indicator on your gun. If it's in single mode, semi-automatic mode, there will be 1 bullet next to the indicator. If it's in full auto mode, there will be 3 bullets next to the indicator, which is a pretty typical way of doing that. The damage indicator, they've added a small damage indicator that will appear when you need to take, when you're bleeding out and you need to put a bandage on.
Some sort of a bandage. Yeah.
And from what I'm looking at here with this image, it looks like it is next to the health indicator here on the screen. You can see that you can see it blown up here. It's right next to the health indicator.
Just a little symbol.
Yep, little, as pretty typical, little red blood droplet indicating that you're hurt. This is a problem with a lot of these games. I even noticed this in Rend. I didn't know I was still hurt because the screen didn't turn red. The only thing I could see was my health slowly ticking away. So having that on, I think of the on-screen indicators kind of like the dash in your car, right? With a second that you notice a different light on, you have like a panic attack. Like, oh my God, what light is on the dashboard of my car? And it's the same thing with this. So if you notice the red blood, you'll go ahead and do that. They've also reworked and done some things with respawning. They say that
because it uses the point system. It's not based on time. It actually uses points. So you have to earn points to be able to get the higher levels of respawn options.
And they were saying that there was a problem because squads were respawning for an infinite amount of time. So random respawn costs you 25 points, but there's no timer. A sector respawn costs you 50 points and has a 15-second cooldown, and it increases 15 seconds for each consecutive use. So you have to wait. You can't just die and respawn and die and respawn. That's just a sector. That's a zone on the map. A shelter respawn will cost you 75 points and will have a cooldown of 30 seconds, and it will increase 30 seconds for each consecutive use. And then the squad respawn will cost you 100, but will have 60-second cooldowns, and those will, again, add up so that they will multiply. So obviously there was an issue with that where big groups, as long as essentially one person could stay alive, you may be able to keep a gunfight going on. They've made some modifications for that. And they've also added underwater caves, which is kind of odd for this game. And frankly, based on the screenshots, they don't look amazing. I
would assume that there's going to be some sort of a cool loot in there.
But there's caves, so go ahead and check it out. These images aren't super great. They've added some different colored beanies to the games, and then they've updated the supporter pack, which you can use if you're a supporter. You can whistle.
So they've added whistling to it.
You can whistle. They've done some bugs. For example, fix the bug with doors staying closed, some client crashes, a couple of quality of life changes, and then a whole bunch of admin commands. And there's a known issue. There's a couple of known issues on here as well. And then the comic, which they are in full swing on. I think they've done 3 pages of the comic so far. So if you want to go ahead and check that out.
So do you think that so each of these are kind of in a square box, right?
Mhm.
Do you think that this is something that throughout, because they want this to be a story, and they want there to be an actual story kind of behind how you got to this point and you're on the show, doing this game show.
Yeah, because
Do you think
that's
that
what SCUM is. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think that they're going to then use the stills from this comic to kind of tell the story through the game? That right now they're creating a comic, but it's going to be the actual story of what's happening in the game, or what, the story that they start telling as you play.
I'm sure, because as we've discussed, it's very hard to do lore inside of a game when it's run and gun PvP kill things. So this is kind of their way to, if you're interested in it, you can go and get it, and then they can just build the game kind of around it. It's kind of like Conan. Conan didn't have to really write a story per se. They did a little bit, but they didn't have to, because there's so much lore and already backstory with the whole Conan franchise and the whole name Conan. So they didn't have to work very hard at that. They still did. They did things, but they didn't have to go. They didn't have to.
It just
build
seems like it would make
scratch.
a lot of sense for them to then use this, because your average person doesn't go and look at these. I mean,
no, probably not. But your average,
most people don't read patch notes.
Would you? Yeah, but I would make the argument, because I think that there's a pop-up in the home screen, but I would make the argument that this game has got such a niche community that the people playing are probably looking at these. Probably.
Yeah. Well, I think with them, I mean, this game has a lot of potential if they can just get that end game to it, get this story in there to where people feel attached to the character or feel like there's a point to things. I think that's where they really struggled before, because like, what was the point of doing all this stuff? I'm on a game show, but I couldn't really tell. You're just kind of running around like you do in DayZ or games like that, Rust. What do I do next? And I think that's what would set this game apart and make it unique, is if they actually had a point to why you're doing something or a goal.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what they're looking at doing, because there is some sort of a story, as I said, that puts you into that place and something you're supposed to be trying to accomplish.
That's the plan, at least. Now, and we've disagreed a little bit on how necessary that is, but they've got somebody working on it and doing it. So I guess they think it's worthwhile, I guess.
Yep. So we'll see. All right. Do you want to talk about some PUBG?
Yeah, they've got a whole bunch of stuff here.
Yes. So one thing is they changed their domain name. I don't know if you noticed that. It's now PUBG.com. So they were actually able to get PUBG.com. Because before it was Play Battlegrounds before. So if you go there now, Play Battlegrounds does forward to this, but they put out their update number 27. And this one, I mean, there is a video inside of there that's pretty short. I don't know if you want to play that really quick.
Yeah.
So it's just a video right after you open it. It's only like a minute and something long.
Okay. This is PUBG update number 27.
Welcome to Patch 27. Today we're excited to announce the grand opening of Survivor Pass 3 Wildcard, the addition of a brand new weapon, changes in weapon balance, and more. Survivor Pass 3 is now available and will remain open for the next 10 weeks. Like before, you'll earn XP by completing missions, though the missions themselves have gotten some adjustments to be a little easier to complete. With over 60 items to unlock, you can jump in, complete missions, and dress to kill. Next up is the MP5K, a new SMG that will spawn exclusively on Vikendi in place of the Vector on that map. Able to accept all attachments, including stocks, grips, and scopes, and come in with single, burst, and full auto options, the MP5K is a highly versatile weapon useful for short to mid-range combat. Give the MP5K a go on your next drop, and blast your way through the icy competition of Vikendi. After hearing and analyzing your feedback, we've also made some significant changes to weapon balance. Log in now, and you'll find aim punch has been reduced significantly. Attachments for pistols and SMGs have been merged. The M16A4 has gotten some improvements, and more. See our patch notes for the full scope of what's new, and make sure to tell us what you think of these changes. Both the in-game and lobby UI have seen some design changes and content additions as well. As you scroll down the settings menu now, you'll find a preview image and explanation for each selected option. The in-game systems menu now also includes a key guide tab. And finally, more customizable options have been added within the team management tab. We hope you'll find these changes help improve your overall gameplay experience. And as always, we look forward to your feedback. For the full patch notes, check out the link in the description below or on PUBG.com.
All right, quick PUBG update. I like when they do those videos, short, sweet, and to the point.
Yep.
So that's good. What did you want to highlight anything else from the update, or did that do a pretty good summary?
No. So, well, there are one thing that they did change, and there's a lot of videos for this, so
yes,
we can just play them.
You've made this very, very tough on me. Short videos are never the easiest.
I know. But one thing that I don't know why they spent so much time on this, but they really focused on the character movement sounds. And so they had to go through and show a video of every single variation that they did here. And so I don't know if you just want to play one and we can just listen for a second.
Yeah, let's do that. So we'll start off with the first one here, which is, what's the first one here? Russell sound improvements. Is that the first one that you've got?
Yeah. So, is there a number? Are you doing the first one on the list? So this is with equipment. So if you have a backpack, a gun, you have a lot of items on you, this is the sound that you'll hear doing that.
Okay. Not really sure what those sounded almost identical to me.
So that was the before and the after. As I said, I don't know why they spent so much time.
Do we have to show the rest? Do we have to show the rest of these? I can't tell the difference. Are any of them actually noticeable?
The one, no.
Okay.
There is, all you hear is a slight little difference of a slight at different timings, and maybe the amount that happened kind of close together. With the originals, I'll tell you this.
This doesn't make very good podcast material, I think is the purpose here. I mean,
so he says play the backpack with backpacks. So that'll be the third one.
I don't have a third. I have a second and a fourth. Let's see.
I'm saying the one I've highlighted right here.
Okay, let's try this one.
Listen closely. So you can hear they added a slight keys jangling.
I mean, I get it, but
so that's pretty much, that was a huge part of that patch. I don't know.
Okay, that's enough of that.
I don't know why they spent all their time. I mean, it seems odd to me because it's such almost unnoticeable, the difference.
Brian, are you ready to introduce the new and improved Infection podcast?
All right, let's hear this.
All right, so here we are. This is us. This is us currently right now. We're going to go to our banner screen. Welcome back. It's the new and improved Infection podcast. We've changed everything, right? Everything is different.
It's all new.
I mean, this is so. How can you make a cross comparison video when you've made such little minute changes? I mean, that first video, I could not really tell that there was a difference.
That's what I found really odd. It's like you're listening, and it's like, okay, you changed the jingling of the keys slightly, but I mean, can you imagine how much they probably spent doing that?
I can make some.
I mean, they're making
I'm not going to.
They're making a big deal of this. I bet you that they went all out and recorded all this and did all kinds of crazy stuff. When all they need to really do is just change a little thing that on the random in Unreal, how often it calls it. I mean, that's all that sounds like they did. And they're all saying, "Oh, we went and readjusted all these things."
Firebomb says he
really changed it.
Firebomb says he wants the old one back, so we'll revert back to our previous form. There we go. We're good. We reverse the wipe. We're good to go. All right. Okay, that's useless. I mean, it's good that they're doing stuff like that, but it seems like you'd want to do a better cross comparison.
Well, yeah, you didn't even notice the first time.
No.
That we played it, that was supposed to be the before and the after. I mean, it was, unless you pointed it out and be like, okay, I can kind of tell a little bit of a difference, but it's not even worth making a post about. Now, one thing also they did is they have a sub-site for that pass. So if you want to go look at all the stuff they have on that Survivor Pass, if you go to pass.pubg.com, that'll
Oh, that's
have
cool.
all the graphics and everything that you can go check out, and things that you'll be able to earn during that. And they do a really good job with these mini websites that they do. So definitely check that out. And this is on, they don't have it on Xbox One and PS4 yet.
Gotcha.
So it's just on the PC one, but they will be doing it soon to where you can use the Survivor Pass on those.
Soon TM, as they say.
Yeah.
All right.
But these guys are fairly timely.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let's talk about Miscreated. They had an update here that was put out. I believe this date is last
The 28th.
Thursday. And my graphics aren't loading here.
Yep,
as
that
they
was Thursday.
should. Okay, there it is. So this was so there was an original update, and then they did a hot fix on it. So they've done some things with the base building recipes. The recipes for crafting base building parts have been simplified, which is something that has been probably the biggest issue with.
It's such a pain to make a base, especially when they're going to be destroyed by a hatchet within a day.
Yes. They're saying that the intermediate panels are no longer needed, which is going to simplify that process. And they said crafting base building parts will now be easier and much faster than before. Brian.
Yes.
Why did they not do this when they just relaunched and redid the whole freaking game like 3 months ago or whenever they did their big grand reveal? Why did they not do this?
Because I'll give you my opinion. No, this is not based on anything that they've said, but my opinion is because they want a hardcore game, and I think they're starting to find that is such a niche audience that they are not getting the player numbers that they thought they would have after release. People don't want. We talked about this actually. We talked about this, was it last week or the week before, where one of the beautiful things about H1Z1, or what is now Just Survive, or was Just Survive, was the fact that you could get up and going and you could get a base built and it didn't take forever and you weren't out of the game as soon as you died.
Yeah.
On this one, they've been trying to keep it so hardcore that it pretty much eliminates most of the player base of people who actually want to play this. So
I just don't get it. I think it's been very clear now.
I think they're slowly starting to become less and less hardcore.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, Brian, but that's great if you want to slowly become less hardcore, but by the time you make your full transition into your new game, nobody wants to freaking play it.
The problem is that when you trickle features like this, there's no point when everybody says, oh, this is now the game that I've been wanting to play. No one will realize.
Yeah, you're telling me that these
so slowly
3 bullet points in their show notes or in their updates is going to make me drop everything I'm doing and go play the game? No. I mean, seems like this would have been the perfect thing to do with their big patch that they just did.
Yep. So I don't know why. I don't know why, but there's some sort of a, hey, this is the kind of game we want. If you can't get over a certain number of players. I mean, the game is beautiful. There's so much there. If they could just get that last little bit.
So
it seems like it'd be so much better, but that's one thing that they've not done up to this point, is really make base building viable. And maybe this is what it takes. Maybe it's easy enough now to build a base to where you're like, okay, this is worth it. It's kind of hard to say because all they said is simplified. They didn't actually say.
I guess I'll have to give
how much.
I guess I'll have to give it a try. They've also made some general game changes as well. The many fixes and enhancements to the modding support, which I think actually could be something that helps them significantly. Adding a new level via modding now works. After a modded server has been joined and then substantially leaving the server, the game will now exit and must be restarted. So what I understand that to mean is when you join a modded server, it loads the mods into your game. And the only way to unload the mods is to restart the whole. That seems a little broken to me, but I guess that's probably something with Crytek. Isn't that what they use? CryEngine? It's got to be something with CryEngine.
Yeah, it probably just loads them in to a certain point where it has to relaunch the client just to even go to normal.
That's not great. That sucks. I don't know how big of a deal it is, but you have to restart the game every time to even jump between modded servers. It would appear. So they've got that. The game builds process no longer encodes some additional XML files, so they can easily be read and modified via mods. And they give a couple of file extensions that they use on that. Skins awarded from driving a boat on the i3D servers, which are their official servers, will now be awarded correctly. Driving a quad bike on an i3D server will now award a random quad bike skin to match the other vehicles. The following items can now be stored in kiosks: iron sights, thatch, and a fire drill, which is used to create fire. The Bulldog, which is a weapon, is now correctly marked as a primary slot weapon in Steam. That's part of their Steam kiosk inventory system. Watermelon seeds will now spawn. The NVIDIA power...
That's with this patch. I mean, they did with the release, farming was a new thing that that I haven't heard too much about since.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember us talking about it, but I don't remember us doing anything with it.
Seeing it. Well, this thing is we could never get progressed enough to actually make a base.
Yeah.
And farm.
Yeah, well, that's true. Or get anything done. Set the NVIDIA power mode to perform maximum instead of optimum. Very specific issue. All item names and descriptions can now be translated via an external XML file. So that's for multilingual support. The Doom Buggies can now spawn with random colored skins, and quad bikes can now spawn with random colored skins. Reduce the rotten pumpkin weight to match the normal pumpkin weight. Several items have had their weights reduced due to the base building recipe changes. Wink, wink. Any of the old base building panel pieces are no longer needed and can be removed from storage or inventory. And fix the weight on the flashlight pistol attachment. That's part of items. Vehicles have adjusted the entry and exit helper locations for the tractor. That the indicator pops up showing you can or can't enter it. In the UI, they added a new filter has been added to the server browser, so modded servers can be filtered out by default. And when joining a modded server, a new message is displayed informing you that the server is modded and allowing you to cancel joining it. And then they fixed quote helicopter sounds when firing MP5 at a distance. Why they seem to have some weird issue with these modded servers. Like they're adding it into the game, but why do you need to give people a caution message when they're joining a modded server?
Why not just have a cancel whenever you're joining any server? Why not put a cancel up there? What's the point? What's the difference between modded? Are people worried? Now, here's the one thing that you'd have to ask. Are these mods insecure? Are they not actually, can something happen with these mods that they're actually concerned that I'm joining a server I don't recognize. I need to cancel out of this before something happens?
I mean, it's like, it's like you're browsing a shady torrent website when you're trying to join a modded server and Miscreated. They've got an indicator on the server browser. There's a symbol that indicates that it's modded. I mean, it's just very odd. They want people to join the modded servers, presumably, and I guess they think that the modded community and modded servers are potentially the future of this game. And then in the exact same vein, they're kind of sabotaging it. Not sabotaging, but they're just complicating it a little bit. So that's just
I don't know. That's one thing I haven't really understood is it seems like if you're going to have all these variations of servers, why not have a non-hardcore version? I mean, the problem is that they haven't put in enough tools for the servers themselves to change settings to actually, because that's one thing we found. We ran a private server and we couldn't make it easier. It was pretty much, we're running a server that's exactly like the dedicated Miscreated servers. There's nothing extra that we can do. We can't give ourselves anything. I mean, the only thing I could do is control the weather. That was the limit of my server admin abilities. And so I don't know. I would, if I were them, if they were really wanting to make private servers viable, give them more tools that are, I mean, maybe they're saying, well, you could make a mod to do that. Well, it shouldn't be a mod to be able to spawn in an item. You know what I'm saying? Like there
Well, I
should
guess
be.
in the engine, things like that are very complicated.
It can't be that hard. I mean,
You're making an assumption with
a little bit of code, and they can do it.
All right.
A little bit of code.
I'm not gonna argue with you. It's got to be complicated. I mean, it seems like all they do is do.
Honestly, it couldn't be. I mean, it's like spawning an item into the world. It honestly cannot be that hard.
All right, Brian. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
2 lines
I'm
of
just
code.
saying very possibly, as long as you had an item list. That's the thing.
Again, that's my
like,
point, Brian. You're making assumption that they have that there is some grand item list that they can just use.
There has to be. They have to have a database of all the items.
I don't know.
There is a data table. That has
I refuse. I refuse to believe you. You're so. Here's what pisses me off about when you say stuff like this, Brian. You just 2 minutes ago said how much time did the PUBG people put into those stupid audio fixes? Everything is easy. Except for the PUBG audio fix. That was very complicated, but this is 2 seconds. Explain yourself.
That's what I said. I said with that PUBG audio fix, it should have, all they did was change the timing of the.
But you said, could you imagine the amount of time they put into it?
I'm saying the amount of time they put into that was a huge waste. That's the point I was getting at.
Oh my God, you're crazy.
They probably put a bunch of resources into changing that stupid audio when they really shouldn't have. That's what I say. But with this, they could actually change this. Yeah. Sean says replacing backpack.wave is hard.
Oh yeah, that's all it is. Yes. Yeah, in my new game that I'm coming out with, weather simulator, I'm changing tornado sound.aif or some obscure .real. My real audio player is gonna be hot off the presses.
So anyways, I don't know. There's some tools, but I do know. So Chris, was it who we had on the podcast at one time?
Chris from where? Well, from Miscread?
Miscread. Yeah.
Yes,
Wasn't it Chris? Was it
I believe it was Chris. Yeah.
I know that he made the server tools. So, I mean, he's doing other things and then he's also making the server tools. So I think he's the only person on the team that would be doing that. So it's pretty much for him to go and do that. It's like, okay, well, don't do this other thing. Or I don't know how much money if they have a limit on the amount of time that they spend on this project. I mean, there may be a limit to where you're only making this much money this week per week. I mean, I don't know how their thing works.
They have got we were talking about Rend with a finite resource. They are an incredibly small team. Like they're less.
That's
than
what I'm saying
people.
is they may have other jobs that they do, and this is a certain. They have a contract or something to work a certain number of hours per week. Who knows? So I'm assuming there's a reason that he hasn't just dedicated however much amount of time to put those things in.
Yes. All right. Well, that's Miscreated. And Brian, as we're sitting here, an update for a game has come out.
Yes.
Dead Matter has released their devlog number 7. It's a long video. It's about 6.5 minutes. Do you want to do that now, or would you want to do that next week?
No, let's go ahead and do that. And then I don't know that there's really we can hold off on some of the other titles.
Okay, we'll have a couple minutes once we get back from that. But this is Dead Matter update number 7, hot off the presses, uploaded to YouTube 3 whole minutes ago. So we'll watch that. We'll talk about it, or we'll listen, and then we'll talk about it.
Hey survivors, welcome to Dead Matter Vlog 07. My name is Nick Z, the lead developer of Dead Matter, and I'm super excited to show off some of the stuff we've been making progress on over the last couple of months. Our lead artist Shirk has been hard at work on adding a batch of new locations to our world. We now have a set of lakeside cabins. These are great spots to check for loot as you navigate through the world. A summer camp, which is the perfect place to stop by and check for some camping supplies. An electrical substation. This substation will act as one of the sources of electricity in our closed alpha map area. A radio station, perfect for broadcasting about your male vitality products. A trailer park, just off the highway. Some metal storage warehouses. Another trailer park, as well as some other very minor locations, such as these metal shacks that are scattered around the area. All of the new locations that have been added are roughly within walking distance to one another. This is because every major player movement corridor, such as the valleys in the mountainous regions or the once bustling highways that stretch across the map, will have points of interest built up alongside them. We aim to have players that are exploring our world to frequently encounter small points of interest. You won't be running from town to town for 30 minutes without anything to look at or to loot. We aim to make our world feel easy to navigate. Markers such as radio towers or billboards can be found near towns, remote locations, and alongside highways. These markers are used to naturally guide the player through our world. There have also been some improvements to how foliage is procedurally placed in our world. We're also working on some changes for our sky and weather system that should be available for the next vlog. Nomad's been doing some work in the vehicle department. We've now got a brand new sedan being added to the game. It's reliable, hits like a brick, and will soon have a police variation, for those of you that will be instantly selecting the police occupation. Nomad's also taken a Kickstarter-era concept for a news van and turned it into a new vehicle. These will be found scattered throughout the world, and some of them will be drivable. He's also created some medical items that will be used in-game. An epinephrine auto-injector, a morphine auto-injector, and a blood type testing kit. Nomad's also created a set of camping tents that can be set up near your camp. They act as storage and a place that you can crawl inside of for protection from the elements. There's also a set of soccer field assets that Nomad has created. The audience really doesn't seem to like being recorded, however. There have been some additions to the weapon system. Now you can check how much ammo is remaining in your weapon by pressing the check ammo key. I've also made some improvements to how weapons are put down. Long weapons such as the Mosin will now be extra punishing in close quarters. Grenades have also now been implemented. There are currently 3 different types of grenade. A fragmentation grenade, which causes an explosion that not only damages players but has a chance of embedding shrapnel into those who survive the initial explosion. A smoke grenade, which is currently used for blocking visibility. Please note that the smoke effects are currently made by me and not an artist, and they'll probably change for the better in the near future. A flashbang, which upon exploding will blind players and make it very difficult for them to see. All of our grenades do not use a traditional physics system and instead follow a deterministic flight path. If you can throw a grenade at the exact same angle on the exact same wall, you will get the exact same outcome every single time. Grenades are not common in Dead Matter, and we want people to be able to use them to their full effect when they find them. With some help from our talented animation lead, we've now changed how our reloading system works. Drum magazines no longer cause heartache or buggy clipping when they're being reloaded, which you might have noticed in our previous vlog. Remember the rifle from our trailer in May? After we brought on the shiny Haxorus, all of our existing weapon animations were canned, including those for the service rifle, and the service rifle itself. We've now got a brand new set of animations for it, and a brand new set of meshes. Same modularity as before, but we think it looks a lot better than our previous version. Weapons can now jam if they are in poor condition. They can be unjammed by hitting the reload key. We've also got a brand new laser pointer attachment, which will help players when using a weapon and not aiming down sights. These are especially useful on weapons that shine at close quarters combat. I've been working on an implementation of a new physical attribute system called SETA. SETA stands for Strength, Endurance, Dexterity, Agility. It's meant to be a reflection of your character's physical attributes. Strength is tied into maximum carry weight, as well as your maximum hit points and how much damage you deal with melee weapons. Endurance, which is responsible for maximum limb health and your resistance to poison and infection. Dexterity, which is responsible for how quickly you do things with your hands, including reloading, cycling the action on shotguns, and bolt-action rifles such as the Mosin Nagant. Agility determines how quickly you do things with your body, including how quickly you can raise a weapon after sprinting, how long you can sprint for, and how fast you are when sprinting. There is now a carry weight system. There is no hard limit, however, if you are over-encumbered you will start to move more slowly when sprinting. Death, unconsciousness, and falling over now have a UI element that go with the effect. Melee weapons now have hit detection similar to Left 4 Dead 2. There's now a series of capsule traces that sweep across your screen, making melee weapons much easier to use. Our medical system beforehand was simple. Limbs took damage, and that was basically that. Not anymore. I've gone ahead and performed the first pass on a brand new medical system. Currently, there are 13 different conditions in Dead Matter that you can be affected by. Sprained ankles, leg fractures, infections, food poisoning, pain, broken ribs, hypothermia, poisoning, bleeding, embedded shrapnel, embedded bullets, and anaphylaxis. These conditions can also be treated in-game through a variety of items, such as the ones shown off earlier. I've also implemented a system that allows you to easily remember your character's blood type. Simply use a blood testing kit and the blood type will be displayed within the medical menu. Want to help out with the project? You can! Show us some love by sharing this video on social media, or you can back the game via Indiegogo. Want to interact with us? Feel free to drop by our Discord or forums. The links are in the description. We're a passionate team, and our goal is to make a damn good game. And with the announcement that we made last month, I'd like to extend our gratitude to the community. You guys have been so patient and kind in giving us the time that we need to bring Dead Matter to a state that we feel is palatable and fun to play. The feedback and criticism that we've received has helped us shape Dead Matter into a much better product, and we plan on keeping up with our community throughout early access and beyond our 1.0 release. Thank you for watching this to the end. We truly appreciate your support.
All right. Quick Dead Matter update. Some interesting things in there. Brian, I'll tell you this. We have got to get our show in one of these radio stations in one of these games. Everybody's got the radio station. We've got to get in there. Get at least an episode.
I bet you they would let us if we recorded a special thing that was more generic, that maybe talked about news of the area.
I like this. We're going to become like a production
I could
house.
talk to them.
We should. I think we should do that.
We'll do like a broadcast.
Yes, this is a great
If they
idea.
give us a script, like what they want us to talk about, we have to make it believable.
Hey, Brian. No?
No. I don't know if we need to do those noises that way.
Okay, I'm just saying. So, a couple comments in chat about it. Donnie brings up the point that the game has grenades. It's not even out yet. Yet DayZ still can't get grenades in their game. That is just kind of the frustration that we were talking about earlier with DayZ. It's shit like that really bugs people. Overall, I mean, I think I proceed with caution with any. The problem is they've delayed the game. They've delayed the game now. What, twice? They've delayed it, I think.
2 or 3 times. I don't remember.
2 or 3 times they've delayed it. We don't really. All we've seen is 7 video logs thus far, and they look good. The chances of the game coming out it's probably going to come out. Those chances are probably pretty good, but we've seen videos, still pictures, images, whatever. We have not seen a lot of. We haven't played it, and nobody has played it. Nobody's touched a launcher. Nobody's touched an executable. Nobody has done anything, and that's where we are. So, even Donnie says, he said in here earlier, the game looks decent. I'm seriously proceeding with caution, though, going to wait to buy it. I think that is a valid opinion. Even though Dead Matter looks like it could be an amazing game, I think that's a valid opinion to have, based on the past. I mean, how many times are you going to get screwed over? How many times are you going to get screwed over before you stop making the same mistake? And that's kind of where we are with this game.
This game visually it looks good visually. What it will really come down to, I think, as far as whether this is going to work, is performance and multiplayer, and if that part of it works, because visually, like it looks really good. I mean, it's a visually nice looking game. It's got a lot of stuff in there, but will gameplay feel like what you're expecting when you go into that? Will it feel riveting? Will the zombies actually matter? I think that's what's going to be the question. Will be interesting to see once they actually release.
Yeah. So we're in a waiting a waiting pattern. I mean, I understand talking about we're going to keep the community up to date. I'm not doubting that. I'm not trying to indicate that they're being untruthful, that they're lying, nothing like that. But in all fairness, we've heard this time and time and time and time and time and time and time again. So proceed with caution, I think, is a good. I'm excited for it. I'm hyped for it. I'm hoping that it does well, but nobody knows. I mean, this game very well could not come out at all.
Something will come out, whether or not it's rush. I mean, the thing is they don't seem to be rushing. So unlike this other one, and this is kind of my point originally when we were talking about Rend, is those other guys probably live, in California. They have a high cost of living. Like, they're viewing it more as a job, where these guys view it more as a passion project. They're putting in probably more time than what they're being paid for, right? And they have a certain expectation of what they want this to be. I think that I think that that's the difference with this is these guys are just putting in all the time, regardless of whether or not they're getting money out of it immediately. So whether or not it's actually going to be good, we'll see. But I think that personally, I'm fine with waiting because we've had too many trash games over the however many years that I just don't need another one in my library of games that's no good. Take your time if that's what it takes.
I agree with you that that it doesn't need to be rushed and that they're taking their time, but I also think that can be a problem because trends change, and we have seen just in the length of us doing this program over the past 4 years, we have seen the trend change. And
DayZ, when they originally announced we're going to do a standalone, oh, that's great. I mean, it was something that was going to be better than H1Z1, and then they took way too long. And okay, everybody's done with H1Z1. They moved on.
Well, I mean, we just saw the whole zombie trend. We saw it. We lived it. We saw it. I mean, we're in the BR trend right now. Every game is introducing a BR mode. That at some point is going to fade out, and I don't want them to rush the game to completion, but I do think that you need to have a healthy amount of kick in the rear end to somebody's got to be keeping the pedal on the metal, and it can't just be this lackadaisical, well, whatever, we'll release it whenever we want kind of thing. I mean, there's got to be some push behind getting it actually out, because after enough devlogs or posts or pictures or videos on the internet, people are going to go, give me a damn product or shut up about it. Because I mean, that's what it turns into. I mean, I want
they
to
need
play
to
the
decide
game.
how much are they going to be considering alpha, early access type of a thing. How much do they want to release? How much do they want to develop and do after the fact and kind of put out as features? Because I think that was the downside of SCUM is they released too early. I mean, the base of the game was there, but there wasn't anything to do, and people were like, there's not enough to do, and they haven't gone back to it. At what point will people come back and give it a second chance because there's enough features? I could have enough features now. We don't know because people aren't going back and giving it a second chance. So I think these guys need to have enough features in there to where the first time, okay, there was stuff to do. Maybe they reached the end of that stuff to do, kind of like we did with Conan originally. I mean, we played
Zara?
Conan.
Zero.
Yeah. Zero. So far he's doing more of a PvP, but he's going to have to come up with if it's going to be more than PvP. He's going to have to put in some content before he considers it ready to release.
But what I meant with that was the fact that he has released a very alpha stage of a game to get people in there, and I think.
And letting people play it, but that's the thing is they
key.
Could do that with this.
That's my point.
They could do free weekends. That would be very smart of them to do.
You've got to get
just
some,
so that people see.
them
Okay, well, here's what we have so far, and then people would probably be more willing to give them a chance and a break. Of all right, we see that you've done a lot, and you have a list here. Have a roadmap that says here's the stuff that we still want to release, and let people. I mean, that'd be a good way to bring them in, get them hyped. And maintain that without it being just we showed you a video of stuff we're working on. Because that's what we've had so far.
You've got to get people in game. You've got to. You can't just videos and stuff only go so far. You've got to get them in game.
Yeah, and I think that for them, they're probably viewing it as we want to have a fairly complete map, and then what we'll be adding afterwards mostly is mechanics and polishing. I would assume that that's kind of their thinking, but they want to have enough there to where people get a good idea of the game the first time they play it.
Yeah.
Which I understand, but there will be a point. I mean, they way underestimated the first time. I mean, it was ridiculous how much they underestimated the first release.
Yeah. And as we've talked about, it's a learning thing. You've got to learn with it. As long as they learn from their mistakes, we're good.
Yep.
I've got something else here. Atlas had an update that they released, and this I got reminded by this because we were supposed to have a March wipe. The official wipe is supposed to happen in March, and I know, Brian, hold your jaw because it's going to drop. They didn't do it in March. I mean, this is just so shocking from the ARC team, the team that
I was actually watching it. Yeah, over the last couple of days, I was because they said I looked at the last day and I was like, oh, there's no update.
So they put out, of course, an update on the 30th, and they said they put out a note saying that they wanted to give you a quick status update that Atlas 1.5, which is this version that we talked about at this point probably a month ago, and that is going to be hitting the public test realm next Wednesday. So that's going to be tomorrow, the 3rd of April. And by then, there will be an in-depth captain's log. So on next week's program, we'll have a full update on what all is going to be in there. And then I guess shortly after it's on test, it will go to the public. Go
because they haven't put out any patches in the past week. There's been 0 patches.
And then they're saying going forward, we expect major updates to come on a monthly basis, which will include content such as new items, weapons, creatures, and new areas for players to check out. We know that this update is taking quite some time, and we really appreciate everyone's patience as we as we dug down to the core of the claiming system and reworked it. We expect that we'll have this ready to ship on the main network by the week of the 8th of April, so some point next week. And then, of course, the Steam...
So 6 days from now.
Well, that week, yeah. And then I'll just read you some of the quick Steam comments. Literally the most pathetic gaming company. Seriously, this is ridiculous. At what point do you even know how to release a complete product with Arc? Just bad timing. This is literally just Arc all over again. I mean, the people are pissed, and they should be.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a point of I think you get some leeway on missing dates, and the reason that Arc was able to blow past so many dates is because the game far exceeded everybody's expectations. But Atlas is not. Atlas has been Atlas, in my opinion, was misled from the start. The whole concept and everything was not accurate. So
it was not what we expected.
Well, it's not what they said. I mean, they claimed it to be some crazy pirate PvP game, and what it turned into is spend 40 hours building a ship to get it instantly destroyed. I mean, that's what it was. Yeah. Nobody was actually hanging out you couldn't hang out on the ships. You died instantly. People were dying and respawning on the ships because they didn't have the nutrient system dealt with.
Yeah.
So they brought it on themselves. So no, you don't get Atlas does not have the same leeway that Arc had, because they have managed to royally F it up time and time again.
Yeah.
So,
well,
that's Atlas.
And that's I totally forgot about it today when I was doing the notes, because they didn't put out any updates, and I wasn't even thinking about it. So that shows you how much we're looking forward to it.
I mean, I want to play it, dude. I'm telling you, I would love to play Atlas, but it's just lackluster.
Yeah. I mean, they need to have other stuff to do. I mean, it needs to be a full world that has.
Well, I think this
NPCs
update could be
lots of stuff.
I think this update.
So hopefully it will be better.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? We got most of the stuff. There was a League of Legends update. So for those, we know a lot of people love League of Legends. So I put that in the notes.
I've been playing League of Legends.
Outlaws of the Old West put out an update, small one. Unturned put out an update. And Z1 Battle Royale put out an update. And Hurt World, of course. Fractured Lands, Dead by Daylight, which you do actually like, all put out updates this week. So we'll have links to those in the show notes if you're interested in any of those. One thing about Dead by Daylight is they did put out the Ash versus Evil Dead character. So if you're a fan of that movie series, then maybe you'll enjoy that character.
Yep, that's out. I believe that came out today, and then they're still doing their Switch and the Nintendo Switch version and dedicated server version is coming out later this year. So lots of big things on the horizon for the Dead by Daylight team.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to talk about for the show?
No, sir. I think we got through a lot of stories this week. This was good.
Yes,
we covered a lot of news, so that's always a positive. If we don't have anything else, we can go into current players. Does that work for you?
Very good. Yep, we're good.
All right. Well, current players is a segment where we talk about video games. Well, not just the video games. Actually, we don't talk about them at all. We talk about the numbers and who is actually playing them. I do need to update this logo, this H1Z1 logo. Z1 Battle Royale currently playing 1,141, the 24-hour peak, 3,905, with a 70 peak of 9,858. Moving on over to Ark Survival Evolved, 24,754 people currently playing it. The 24-hour peak is 37,002 with a 70 peak of 50,620. Let's take a look at Miscreated. This community size really hasn't adjusted at all. Currently playing 354, the 24-hour peak 604, and the 70 peak 780. Currently playing Player Unknown's Battlegrounds, 112,953 currently. The 24-hour peak 831,820 with a 7-day peak of 942,933. And finally, Atlas. As people await this update, 1,293. The 24-hour peak 1,615 with a 70 peak of 2,307. And I guess that's not super surprising based on the fact that anything that you're doing right now is going to be wiped in a matter of days. So we've seen that number kind of, here's the problem. They've screwed themselves because they announced this update so long ago, and they've now delayed it by essentially 2 weeks that they've had.
And all the people have already lost all their stuff or
6
gone
weeks.
Wasted all or quit playing.
You literally, by the time this comes out, if it doesn't get delayed again, you'll have 6 weeks-ish, 5-6 weeks worth of time in which people did not want to play because they thought they were going to lose their gear. If they knew it was going to be 6 weeks, they may have played another week or two, but they didn't.
Yep.
Now the question is, will they come back? Because what if you get hooked on another game in those 6 weeks, Brian?
Which is easy to do now.
Very easy.
So many other games.
So, I mean, they screwed themselves by delaying, and I don't know how they continue to delay. I mean, do we have to remember the launch? Delayed it 45 minutes after the game was supposed to be out.
Yep. But then it didn't really work for how long?
The first couple days, yeah. I mean, it's just what a disaster. So there's Atlas. Good luck.
Yep. So we will see. All right. Well, hopefully this is a good launch.
I hope so. I mean, Christ.
I made that the server management thing for Linux, and people aren't really hosting servers for it because it's.
Well, yeah. What are you gonna do? Open up your checkbook and write a $250 check a month to host all the servers that you need to host an Atlas server?
That's the thing, is they need to have.
expensive.
I mean, for private servers to work, they have to have stuff for people to do. It can't just be we're going to do PvP. Like, it needs something beyond that, because there's no point on the small servers to do anything.
Yeah, and
Because
it's
it's
like
going
one
to be
zone.
4 squares that you're going around.
Yeah, what is that going to be? How many? Was there 2 to 4 land masses per block? I mean, you could literally you're looking at like 20 to 25, 30 maybe land masses, and some of those land masses are going to be uninhabitable based on what they are. So, I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and so once they maybe get to where in that smaller space there's stuff to do, because right now they're relying on people just going long distances and fighting each other and sinking each other. That just doesn't work for private servers. So hopefully that turns around and it'll become more fun.
I hope so. I mean,
all right.
I'm invested. So yeah.
So let's go and do tip of the week, where either I give a specific game or a general gaming tip. This one's more of a general gaming tip. I don't give these very often. So this is tip of the week. All right, so I wanted to just mention to people that now is an excellent time to get into game development. We talk about it every week. There's a lot of smaller teams that are making games, but right now, 2 of the most popular game engines that people develop with are Unity and Unreal, and they're both. If you go to their marketplaces that they have for this, there's tons of stuff in them. Unity, it's said to be easier to get started on, easier to work with. And it has a ton of assets on its store. I mean, just thousands and thousands of things that you can use. Many are free. There's a lot of things that you can purchase. Unreal recently in their marketplace, they've actually started giving away free assets every month. And just from those free assets, and they've started marking some as permanently free. So ones that you used to have to pay for, they now have permanently free, which makes it so that it gives you a lot of the base things that you need to get started. And so they have character movement systems, they have weapon systems, they have landscape systems. All the things that you need to do are in there, and it's enough to get you to where you could make a fun little prototype just from those assets. Unreal, one thing that they have right now that may be a reason to get started is they have blueprints, which is it's a visual scripting language, and it makes it a little easier than having to write code from scratch. In that one, it would be C++. Unity, they have a visual scripting language that will be coming up in their 2019.2 release that is going to be coming up here very soon. So they're going to have a visual scripting language that'll be the first one that they add to it. And learning programming, one thing benefit of it, and learning to do some game development, it will help you to better appreciate the games that come out or give more valid criticism. We had mentioned at the beginning, I had talked to a developer and I had some criticism, but when they gave me an exact reason why that made sense of kind of the struggles that video game developers go through, it made sense to me because I've gone and looked at those things before. So it isn't easy, but it is fun. And so these two ways, going to one of those, picking an engine, going and looking at some of the assets, the free assets on their marketplaces, is a perfect way to get started. And it's a great way to start learning programming. So I would encourage you to do it. So that's Tip of the Week.
Donnie says he disagrees with you for the first time in his life.
because Donnie, I've been trying to get him because Donnie does a lot. He did a lot of Arma modding.
He's a modder. Yeah, I know.
Yes. And the next step in that is that you then use an engine and actually start making the games themselves. And so I've been trying to convince him, but he is impatient. And he just hates Unreal, or he hates engines. So, and then Lance, our friend Lance, he and I have been working together, and I've got him to where he's rigging characters. He's doing, I can't give stuff away, but
NDA,
he's doing some very advanced things. No. But
yes.
All the struggles that we talked about with that first group, what they were struggling with. Together, Lance and I have figured that out, and I don't want to give them the way to do it because I want it to be something unique to us, right? But we have figured out that problem that they were talking about.
You're holding your cards.
Great.
You're keeping your cards close.
Yeah, I'm not going to be like, hey, here, everybody do this. It's perfect, because then everyone else will be doing it too, and I don't want them to do that. So, All right. But yeah, so go ahead and get started. I mean, you may not be making games day one. I mean, you're not going to be out the gate. There is a learning curve to it, but it is something to where if you keep at it, you could work your way into the industry. And there's a lot of niche areas in this. Rigging is one of them. It's very difficult to find someone who's good at rigging. And Lance, he's figured out, like, through the tools that I've been able to get him, he's been able to figure out rigging and rig a character from scratch. Very hard to do. One
quick note. You do need a decent computer to do this. Like, yes. if you have
if you can play new games, then you could do it.
Yeah, but if you're barely getting by with 30 low frames settings a second on low settings, good luck running. Good luck trying to move around a scene in Unreal or Unity. Rip your computer. So you do need a halfway decent machine to do something like that.
Yeah. Well, yes, and that's where maybe Unity seems to be a little bit less resource intensive. You see a lot of mobile games and things like that. So Unreal, if you look at a lot of the stuff you see in Unreal, usually they're really going for graphics and things to look a certain way. But you could make a more simple game. You see people making games like SCUM and things like that. You could make a very simple game in Unreal. It could be a 2D game. It could be a top view game. It depends on what you're aiming for. You could make a mobile game, and if you have a low-end machine.
You can buy one for $24 on the Unity store. Change
mostly made, and then you could go through and change the graphics.
No, not mostly made, totally made. I was looking at this the other day with our friend Landgun, like $37, Brian. Servers, multiplayer support, full UI, the character creation screen, private server. I mean, like the whole freaking game. And it was like $37. I was blown away. So you could asset flip.
Yep, you could. And that's what people do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. So there you go.
All right. Very good. You ready for the game giveaways or anything else we need to announce before?
No. No, I think we're good.
All right. So let's go ahead and draw this. PH. So a lot of people are entering the raffle just to spite Lance, who thought he had it in the bag.
Yeah.
And,
you could just send him the code anyway. That would be pretty funny.
I'm sure I got to keep my honesty here. I got to keep the integrity of the raffle.
Yeah. Well, when Lance doesn't join us at PAX now, yeah, I know why. It's your fault. All right. All right, Brian. Well, I think that's our feedback form, infectionpodcast.com/feedback. Please let us know. We're asking what kind of games you'd like to hear about on a weekly basis. If you want to go ahead and fill that out, it's infectionpodcast.com/feedback. Check it out and let us know, please. Fill it out over the next 2 weeks, and then we'll put some changes in place. So check it out.
Very good. All right. If you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter. Actually, one thing I want to mention before. Google Plus shut down today.
Oh, I know. Don't make me upset.
I just wanted to mention this because Google Plus is the reason, first of all, that I am doing development now, because I was doing stuff for Google Plus, and mostly I was running the servers and doing graphics and things like that. And one of the people at Google said, you should start programming, you start coding, learn to code. I mean, I can't say that. You should start programming.
Oh my God. Yeah, learn to code. Learn to code.
That's what they told me, and because they said I would really interested in this, and so I started learning at that point now. And then also, that's how Nick and I know each other is from Google Plus.
Yeah, weird old men contacting me on Google Plus.
Nissan Communications in chat. We know him from Google Plus, and just. Nick has his job because of Google Plus.
I've moved 800 miles away from where I grew up because of Google Plus. There's a lot of my entire being, as I said, as I was talking to our friend Nissan Communications earlier today, my entire being is based around Google Plus, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Well, and that's the crazy thing is so much of the things like how they are right now in my life are because of weird little things with Google Plus.
Circles. And so, hey, join my circle, dude.
Yeah, it's just, and so that shut down officially today. The plus.google.com no longer shows up. So I just wanted to mention that because that is the only reason that we have this podcast today.
Put an F in the chat.
Is because of that platform. So I just wanted to mention that and give a little, I guess, shout out to a no longer existing platform.
F's in the chat, boys. All right.
All right. Anyways, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, my blog, biteoftech.com. And then make sure you go check out our website, infectionpodcast.com, where on the upper right-hand side, we have our Join Our Discord button. On there's a great way you can hang out, communicate. If you want to play Game of the Week with us, we do all that inside of that. And we have a channel where you can submit news if you want to give us ideas of topics that we could cover. Make sure you fill out that survey. We have a link to our Steam group if you want to get notifications before the live show starts. We have our YouTube channel on there and all of our audio formats. We also have the show notes, every single note that we've talked about today. If you want to go on there and view any of the videos, look at any of the articles, we'll have those up tonight to where you can look at tonight's episode or any other one that we've done in the past. So
yeah, except 3 minutes of last week's episode.
Except, yeah, almost.
Alrighty, Brian, thank you as always. 2.5 hours is what we're approaching this evening, so I think this might be this is close to a new record for the program.
All right, you want to do another half an hour?
No, I'm all set. I have work I still have to do, and I've got to upload this show. So, thank you, Brian. Oh, by the way, we will be at some type of different time next week. I just found out I'm going to be traveling across the country for work. So Stay tuned to our Twitter at InfectionCast for an update on next week's timing. It'll probably be Wednesday, but I'm not sure yet. So we'll figure that out. We'll get you the information, and we'll be back next week, but not at our normal time. So stay tuned to our Twitter and Discord for all that.
Yep.
Alrighty. Thank you, Brian. I'll talk to you next week.
Mm-hmm. See ya.
All right, game of the week, Royale. Join us 8 p.m. Eastern in our Discord. It's infectionpodcast.com. Click the big green Discord button and you can jump in there. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig if you want to see my antics on there. And of course, missed any portion of the show, you can check out our show notes. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. See you next time.